Chapter 1308. Listening to Nangong Yu-er's words, Xia Jiqing and Bai Junyu didn't care. For a guy like Nangong Yu-er, there was no need to be polite. A loser is a loser. No matter what you say, you're still a loser. Xia Jiqing twisted her neck and looked at Nangong Yu-er proudly. She didn't like Nangong Yu-er for a day or two, and it was best to make Nangong Yu angry. Looking at Xia Jiqing's smug look, Nangong Yu only felt angry and immediately wanted to slap her. At this time, a low and hoarse voice suddenly sounded. "Are you Bailey Hongzhuang?" Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes turned slightly and looked at the cloaked man who had not spoken since she appeared. He finally spoke at this time. "Yes." Bailey Hongzhuang's voice was gentle, and her eyes looked directly at the cloaked man. Today was the first time she saw the cloaked man, but from the moment she saw the cloaked man, there was a very uncomfortable feeling in her heart. Now the closer she was to the cloaked man, the more obvious she felt. This guy exuded an uncomfortable aura. In fact, since she walked to the central square, she had been wary of the cloaked man. In her heart, this cloaked man was much more difficult to deal with than Nangong Yujin and the others. "You look good, but it's a pity that your luck is bad. You have offended someone you shouldn't have offended. Only death awaits you." Under the cloak, the man's mouth evoked a sinister and evil smile. His hoarse voice was so unpleasant that people couldn't help but frown. Seeing the cloaked man speak, Nangong Yujin and Nangong Yu-er's faces showed a smile. The cloaked man was their trump card. As long as the cloaked man was willing to make a move, killing Bailey Hongzhuang would definitely not be a problem. "I naturally look good, but a guy like you who can only hide in a cloak must be very ugly." Bailey Hongzhuang's lips evoked a sneer. Since the two sides had become enemies, she naturally wouldn't be polite. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, a shocking murderous aura erupted from the cloaked man's body. Nangong Yujin and Nangong Yu-er's faces changed slightly. At the same time, they looked at Bailey Hongzhuang gloatingly. This Bailey Hongzhuang really hit the muzzle of a gun. Normally, they wouldn't dare to talk to Wei Junjie like this, because Hu Junjie was really ugly. As for how ugly it was, they had never seen it. Normally, Wei Junjie was always hidden in his cloak and rarely communicated with others, so they didn't dare to look carefully. However, he had been warned not to mention the word ugly in front of Wei Junjie, let alone try to look at Wei Junjie's appearance. That would be courting death. Therefore, they did not mention a single word about it these days. No one expected Bailey Hongzhuang to poke at Wei Junjie's sore spot the moment she opened her mouth. This was really interesting. "You will die without a doubt." Wei Junjie's eyes flashed with a touch of anger. His eyes were filled with murderous intent as he stared at Bailey Hongzhuang. "No matter what, this woman will die without a doubt." In the face of Wei Junjie's anger, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't care at all. From the moment she stepped onto the high platform, she already knew that this was a situation where one of them would die. Chapter 1309. The final result is not known yet. You don't have to rush to a conclusion. Bailey Hongzhuang looked indifferent. She was also looking at the situation in front of her. The Qing Shao dynasty had a total of 8 cultivators. She glanced at them, and their strength was not much different from the cultivators of the Sky dynasty. Except for the cloaked man's strength, there seemed to be a layer of invisible energy that prevented others from seeing his cultivation. She could judge the cultivation of the others. Nangong Yujin and Nangong Yu-er's improvement in this year was obviously not small. After all, the heritage of the royal family was extraordinary. This assessment competition was a very important thing for every dynasty. The royal family of the Qing dynasty must have invested a lot of resources in the two of them. Before their strength had improved, they were able to defeat the cultivators of the Sky dynasty. Now that their strength had improved, the situation was undoubtedly better. Everyone listened to Bailey Hongzhuang's words, and their hearts could not help but be amazed. At this time, Bailey Hongzhuang could still say such words indifferently. Wasn't her tone too big? "Master, I noticed a dark aura from this cloaked man. His cultivation method should be different from other cultivators." Xiao He frowned slightly. She had been paying attention to the cloaked man. This guy was really strange. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. She also noticed this. However, no matter how the cloaked man hid, she would know in a while. Arrogant. Wait, Junjia sneered. Bailey Hongzhuang's confidence would not last long. Dongfang Yu, with your strength, you can still participate in the assessment. You are really lucky. Nangong Yujin chuckled and did not hide the contempt in his eyes. In the beginning, Nangong Xiujia just humiliated Dongfang Yu in public. Dongfang Yu fell into pain and could not extricate himself. He thought that such a guy would not be able to go far in the future. He did not expect to see him here again today. It was really rare. Nangong Yu's eyes were also filled with doubt. Although Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were all cultivators of Kanglin College, it was strange that they could participate in the same team. The possibility of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others coming from the same empire was too small. No matter which dynasty it was, they would try their best to select at least one member of the royal family to participate in the assessment. However, Bailey Hongzhuang's team consisted entirely of students from the college. It was the first time she had seen such a team. Dongfang Yu's eyes fell on Nangong Yujin. He hated the royal family of the Qing dynasty to the extreme. Back then, Nangong Xiujia humiliated him, and he still remembered it deeply. Although Nangong Xiujia was dead now, this hatred did not dissipate. Moreover, Nangong Yujin was also a disgusting guy. Dongfang Yu's hands clenched into fists. He hated that he couldn't kill Nangong Yujin directly. Seeing this, Gong Xiaoqing patted Dongfang Yu's shoulder. As a good friend of Dongfang Yu for many years, he was very clear about the impact of that scene on Dongfang Yu. Dongfang Yu had always been a senior admired by many cultivators. He also had a very outstanding talent in cultivation. Chapter 1310. Listening to Nangong Yujin's humiliation of Dongfang Yu, the coldness in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes deepened. Nangong Yujin, I really admire you for not dying when the royal family is in turmoil. You could be considered a scourge for thousands of years. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curved into a mocking smile. At the beginning, she hated the royal family of the Qing dynasty to the extreme, so she fed Nangong Aochin that kind of pill. Logically speaking, any cultivator who was close enough to Nangong Aochin would have died. However, Nangong Yujin and Nangong Yu did not have an accident, which proved that they did not visit Nangong Aochin after that. On second thought, with Nangong Yujin and Nangong Yu's mercenary character, seeing that Nangong Aochin had no hope, they naturally did not care too much. Therefore, the current situation was normal. With Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the faces of Nangong Yujin and Nangong Yu instantly became ugly. This was the biggest pain in their hearts. The Qing dynasty was prosperous before, but because of Bailey Hongzhuang, the royal family was now hit hard. In the previous period of time, the royal family of the Qing dynasty had been turbulent, and many people had ulterior motives. Coupled with the fact that the neighboring countries knew that the royal family was in trouble, their actions became more frequent. Under this kind of internal and external troubles, they were all badly battered. It was not until recently that they felt a little better. When they thought of the situation, they felt that it was an intolerable tragedy. Bailey Hongzhuang, if it were not for you, my Qing dynasty would not have become like this. Nangong Yu was already angry to the extreme, and now hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, she could not help but explode directly. She used to be so free and unfettered that she did not need to worry about these things. However, because of Bailey Hongzhuang's interference, the power of the royal family was greatly reduced, and even she was almost forced to marry. The initiator of all this was Bailey Hongzhuang. As soon as Nangong Yu finished speaking, all the cultivators around the central square gasped in shock. The fact that Nangong Yu was a member of the royal family of the Qing dynasty was not unknown. In the past year, the strength of the Qing dynasty had weakened a lot. This was a fact that many people knew. However, no one would have thought that the instigator of all this was actually this young woman in front of them. This was simply too shocking. Isn't this Bailey Hongzhuang a cultivator from a small empire? How can she influence the entire royal family of the Green Firmament dynasty? Since Nangong Yu said so, it is most likely the truth. So it turns out that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others have such a deep grudge against each other. This Bailey Hongzhuang's ability is too terrifying. At this moment, everyone's impression of Bailey Hongzhuang completely changed. It was simply unimaginable for ordinary people to be able to weaken the strength of a dynasty. Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman were not too surprised after hearing this. After all, Bailey Hongzhuang was a cultivator who had obtained the inheritance of the Bloodgrave Abyss. For such a cultivator, it was simply impossible to understand with common sense. Perhaps things that were very difficult in the eyes of other cultivators were not difficult for them. However, Zhu Weicheng and the others were completely dumbfounded at this moment. Chapter 13:11. Ren Wantong could not hide the astonishment in her eyes. It was reasonable to say that the strength of the small dynasty cultivators had always been at the bottom in this assessment. What's more, Bailey Hongzhuang looked a little younger than her. She never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang's strength might be strong, because all these conditions showed that Bailey Hongzhuang's strength was not strong. However, now Nangong Yu-er's words had undoubtedly reversed the situation. If the changes in the Qing Shao dynasty were all caused by Bailey Hongzhuang, then how much influence did Bailey Hongzhuang have? At this moment, Ren Wantong immediately thought of the way Yuan Jixin and Nangong Yu flattered Bailey Hongzhuang before. She suddenly understood that Yuan Jixin and Nangong Yu must know how powerful Bailey Hongzhuang was, so the two of them had such an attitude towards Bailey Hongzhuang. This Bailey Hongzhuang, who was she? Xia Jiqing and the others were also stunned. They did not know that such a big thing had happened in the Qing Shao dynasty. Originally, they only thought that Hongzhuang had at most poisoned Nangong Ouchen to death. Now it seemed that the situation was obviously not so simple. The entire Qing Shao dynasty had been greatly affected. So what did Hongzhuang do? Gong Shaoqing and the others were secretly shocked, but more than that, they were happy. After all, if they could, they really wanted to destroy the entire royal family of the Qing Shao dynasty. It was just that they did not have the ability to do so, but Hongzhuang had done it, which was tantamount to helping them vent their anger. When Nangong Yujin heard Nangong Yu-er's words, he knew that the situation was not good, but it was too late to stop it. The turmoil in the Qing Shao dynasty over the past year was something that many dynasties knew, but the specific reasons would not be known by others. As the saying goes, don't wash your dirty linen in public. It was fine to let others guess, but now that Nangong Yu had said the reason, the situation had undoubtedly become worse. The dignified royal family of the Qing Shao dynasty had fallen in such a situation because of a woman. It was unbelievable. Listening to Nangong Yu-er's words, Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. You were lucky to be able to escape this disaster, and now you are looking for trouble. It seems that you miss Nangong Ouchen very much. Bailey Hongzhuang's understatement made Nangong Yu even angrier. Whether Nangong Ouchen's death or not, she did not feel much. In her heart, the thing she was most upset about was that she had almost been married off to a political marriage. Nangong Ouchen, Nangong Yu-er's words, Wantong Yu-er's, Nangong Yu-er's, Nangong Yu-er, Shiesifili Hongwang glanced at Nangong Yujin and the others. You called me here with such fanfare, and now that I am here, you can say what you want to do directly. She knew that Nangong Yujin and the others were using Yuan Jixin and the others to threaten her. If she did not come out just now, Nangong Yujin would really kill Yuan Jixin. After all, if he killed Yuan Jixin, he still had Yuan Xiaoman as a bargaining chip. Huh? Wei Junjia laughed hoarsely. You are really courageous. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Wei Junjia faintly. Say it, a group fight or a duel. Chapter 13:12. Bailey Hongzhuang's words were so straightforward. She really didn't want to give up until she was shocked to death. Master, in addition to the cultivation of the Cloaked Man, there are 2 Orange Realm Level 5, 2 Orange Realm Level 2, 3 Orange Realm Level 1, and 1 Red Realm Level 9. Xiao He quickly judged the cultivation of the cultivators of the Qing Shao dynasty. If it was before, this kind of cultivation would naturally cause a lot of pressure. However, it was not an absolute threat to them now that their strength had improved. If they wanted to kill them with such a lineup, They were afraid that the other party would not be able to do it. Nan Gongyu looked at Bailey Hongzhuang mockingly. This assessment competition was completely different from the previous college tournament. Bailey Hongzhuang thought that it was very good to get first place in the college tournament. Now, their strength had increased greatly. Because the influence of the royal family had been affected, this assessment competition was particularly important. The royal family had spent a lot of money to improve their strength. Bailey Hongzhuang, don't forget that the hostages are still in our hands. Nangong Yujin proudly pulled Yuan Jixin. Today, Bailey Hongzhuang would definitely die, but he wanted to humiliate Bailey Hongzhuang. Yuan Jixin's face suddenly became ugly. He did not want to be a burden to Bailey Hongzhuang. Nangong Yujin, you are the prince of the Qing Shao dynasty. How can you be so despicable? Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Nangong Yujin disdainfully. The means of the royal family were really dirty and despicable. However, Nangong Yujin did not care about what Bailey Hongzhuang said. As long as he could humiliate Bailey Hongzhuang today, no matter what the means, he did not care. Xia Jiqing and the others frowned. The reason why they appeared on this high platform was to rescue Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman. They originally intended to rescue Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman, while Nangong Yujin and the others were relaxed. But now that Yuan Jixin had been holding on to Yuan Jixin, it was not so convenient for them to act. Bailey Hongzhuang, kneel down immediately, or I will kill Yuan Jixin. Nangong Yujin's mouth was filled with a sneer. Since Bailey Hongzhuang had always been arrogant, then today he would make Bailey Hongzhuang kneel down. Nangong Yu also looked at Bailey Hongzhuang proudly. She wanted to know if Bailey Hongzhuang could be as indifferent as before. Nangong Yujin, you are too despicable. After hearing Nangong Yujin's words, Yuan Xiaoman couldn't bear it and couldn't help but roar. For a prince of a country to use such a method in front of a woman, the word despicable could no longer describe him. After seeing Nangong Yujin's arrogant look, the cultivators present were somewhat disdainful. It was rare for a medium-sized dynasty team to have to resort to threatening means in the face of a small dynasty team. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Nangong Yujin coldly, her dark eyes flashing with deep wisdom. She was not angry because of Nangong Yujin's words. Chapter 13:13. Nangong Yujin, do you have so little confidence in yourself? Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a sarcastic smile. Her beautiful face was enchanting and charming. There are 8 of you and only 5 of us. Under such circumstances, you still need to threaten me to defeat me. Then, aren't you just asking for trouble by going through so much trouble to find me? With Bailey Hongzhuang's voice falling, the cultivators under the stage also began to discuss. That's right, the Qing Shao dynasty is a medium-sized dynasty. Why does it seem like their status is reversed when facing Bailey Hongzhuang? I don't know what Bailey Hongzhuang did to the Qing Shao dynasty's royal family. Otherwise, Nangong Yujin would not be so afraid. It's hard to imagine that Bailey Hongzhuang's strength is so great. Listening to the discussion of the crowd, Nangong Yujin's face was a little ugly. He originally just wanted to use Yuan Jixin to make Bailey Hongzhuang lose face and defeat Bailey Hongzhuang's prestige. However, he did not know why. But every time Bailey Hongzhuang could change the original situation with a few words, which made him feel very helpless. Logically speaking, the situation should not be like this at all. Facing the crowd's discussion, Nangong Yujin's hand that was holding Yuan Jixin loosened a little. Boom! Suddenly, an explosion sounded from the high platform, followed by smoke and dust that quickly blocked everyone's sight. Ah! Nangong Yujin screamed as his face was hit hard. Then, he was forced to loosen his grip on Yuan Jixin. Ah! Nangong Yu also let out a blood-curdling scream. A loud slap landed on her face, causing her to feel a burning pain. When she wanted to fight back, no matter how she waved her hands, there was only air in front of her, and no one was there. The faces of the cultivators of the Qing Shao dynasty showed a touch of panic. They did not know what was going on. Fortunately, no one attacked them. This cloud of dust came and went quickly. In a short period of time, it had completely dissipated. When the crowd saw the situation on the high platform again, there was a hint of surprise in their eyes. They saw that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were still standing in the same place, while Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman were standing behind Bailey Hongzhuang. On the other side, Wei Junjie and the others still did not change, but Nangong Yujin's face had been punched hard. This punch obviously did not hold back. In a short time, his face swelled up and blood overflowed from the corner of his mouth. A clear palm print could be seen on Nangong Yu's fair face. Her entire left cheek was swollen, and she no longer looked as arrogant as before. Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman's hearts were full of shock. They were still worried that Bailey Hongzhuang would be threatened because of them. If Bailey Hongzhuang was humiliated because of them, that was something they absolutely didn't want to see. However, in just a short moment, the two of them had been out of control. The speed was so fast that they did not understand what had happened. Wasn't this method too powerful? Zhu Weicheng and the others saw that Bailey Hongzhuang had saved Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman. Their expressions changed again. It seemed that Bailey Hongzhuang's methods were not simple. Chapter 13-14. Bailey Hongzhuang. Nangong Yu roared in her heart. The situation before was completely under their control. She didn't expect that Bailey Hongzhuang would suddenly make such a move. Although she didn't see who slapped her, she was sure that it was Bailey Hongzhuang. Master, I did a good job, didn't I? Xiao Hei's eyes showed a bit of pride. When she rescued Yuan Xiaoman, she saw Nangong Yu was so close and gave her a slap. Who told this woman to be so annoying? Whenever she saw her, she wanted to beat her up. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded approvingly. I'll add a plate of braised pork for dinner. Seeing this, Xiaobai also came up. Master, I did a good job, didn't I? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded again. I'll add a plate of braised pork trotters for dinner. Thank you, Master. Xiao Hei and Xiaobai showed a satisfied smile. As early as when she saw Nangong Yujin and others holding Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman hostage, Bailey Hongzhuang had already expected such a situation to happen. Therefore, she didn't let Xiao Hei and Xiaobai show up before, but had been hiding in the dark. As long as she took the opportunity to save Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman, then it would become a battle between the two sides. Miss Bailey, thank you for saving our lives. Yuan Jixin's face was full of gratitude. He didn't expect that Bailey Hongzhuang would take such a big risk to save them. This kindness alone was enough to be remembered for a lifetime. Thank you, Miss Bailey, for saving our lives. In the future, I, Yuan Xiaoman, will have no regrets. Yuan Xiaoman's voice was firm. After experiencing the betrayal, she felt that it was not easy for Bailey Hongzhuang to appear. In the face of Bailey Hongzhuang, she was willing to give everything. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Since we are friends, there is no need to say such polite words. Nangong Yujin looked at Bailey Hongzhuang angrily and grabbed Zhu Weicheng. Bailey Hongzhuang, you only saved 2 people, the others are still in my hands. Suddenly grabbed by Nangong Yujin, Zhu Weicheng's face showed a touch of fear. If you don't slap yourself, I will kill him. Nangong Yujin's eyes were full of anger. He must fix Bailey Hongzhuang. Listening to Nangong Yujin's words, Zhu Weicheng quickly said, Miss Bailey's helps, save me. Nangong Yujin's SSS's. With his fellow's ungrateful nature, even if he saved him now, he wouldn't remember this favor in the future. Although Bailey Hongzhuang was loyal to her friends, she didn't have the slightest bit of sympathy for those who had nothing to do with her. Zhu Weicheng's face instantly paled. He looked at Yuan Jixin with hope. Yuan Jixin, we're teammates. You have to save me. Now, they could only count on Yuan Jixin. Since Bailey Hongzhuang was willing to save Yuan Jixin, it proved that Bailey Hongzhuang valued him very much. As long as Yuan Jixin spoke, he would have a chance to survive. Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman glanced at each other. The previous betrayal was still vivid in their minds. Chapter 13-15. Zhu Weicheng, from the moment you betrayed me and Xiaoman, we are no longer teammates. Yuan Jixin's voice was cold and calm. He and Yuan Xiaoman were not kind people. In fact, none of the cultivators who participated in the assessment were kind people. For a teammate who betrayed him, Even if he saved him now, he did not know when he would be betrayed in the future. From this matter, he had thoroughly seen the other person's character, so there was no need to be merciful. Thinking about it, Bailey Girl must also think so, otherwise she would not only save the brother and sister. With Yuan Jixin's voice falling, Zhu Weiqing's face became pale, and the faces of Ren Wantong and the others also became extremely ugly. Who would have thought that things would turn out like this? Originally, they thought that Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman were going to die. Who would have thought that now, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others actually saved them? Yuan Jixin, you can't do this to me. Zhu Weiqing stared at Yuan Jixin. At this moment, Yuan Jixin was his last life-saving straw. If Yuan Jixin did not save him, then he was really going to die. I was wrong before. I am sorry. Please forgive me this time. I will never do it again. Zhu Weiqing's eyes were red, and in the face of the fear of death, his eyes could not help but be filled with tears. He never thought that he would die in the assessment. In the face of Zhu Weiqing's crying appearance, everyone was somewhat contemptuous. In this world where the strong were like clouds, the strong were naturally worshipped, and from another point of view, everyone worshipped the brave. Obviously, Zhu Weiqing had nothing to do with these two. Before, in order to survive, he directly abandoned Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman, and now, in order to plead for mercy, he was crying. Everyone was afraid of death, but people like Zhu Weiqing, who did not have any dignity, were the most despised. Nangong Yujin looked at Zhu Weiqing with some disgust. Before they subdued Zhu Weiqing was still arrogant, but now the situation had reversed. Yuan Xiaoman looked at Zhu Weiqing with disgust. Zhu Weiqing, you reap what you sow. She had always dared to love and hate. When she thought of how Zhu Weiqing had abandoned them, she hated Zhu Weiqing to the extreme and was unwilling to pay any attention to him. When Xia Jiqing and the others saw Yuan Jixin's attitude, there was a hint of joy in their eyes. This was the right attitude to treat people like Zhu Weiqing. If one still had hope for them, then they were truly hopeless. In their eyes, people who betrayed their friends were the most despicable. Seeing the attitude of Yuan Xiaoman and the others, Zhu Weiqing knew that there was no hope for them to help, so he could only put his hope on Nangong Yujin. Young Master Nangong, as you can see, I have nothing to do with them. I beg you, please let me go. This matter has nothing to do with me. When Ren Wantong and the others saw this scene, they all cried out, please let us go. We really don't know them. Nangong Yujin frowned. He had never seen such a shameless guy. Without waiting for Nangong Yujin to speak, a throwing knife cut Zhu Weiqing's throat. Chapter 13:16. Noisy. Wei Junjie only spat out these two words indifferently. This fellow was really too noisy, causing his ears to not be able to have a moment of peace. Seeing this scene, Ren Wantong and the others shut up and did not dare to say another word. Otherwise, they were afraid that a flying knife would end their lives. Nangong Yujin threw the dead Zhu Weiqing on the ground. In fact, if Wei Junjie didn't do it, he would have done it because this guy was too noisy. Wei Junjie turned his eyes to Bailey Hongzhuang. It seemed that Bailey Hongzhuang was indeed a capable person. Bailey Hongzhuang, I admit that your means are good, but today you are doomed to die. Wei Junjie's hoarse voice was full of confidence. He had promised Nangong Yujin and the others that he would help them solve the problem of Bailey Hongzhuang. Today was the time to solve the problem. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. Cut the crap. Let's see who's the real deal. As Bailey Hongzhuang's voice fell, the surging Yuanli in her body instantly turned over, and the aura of Orange Realm Level 5 burst out. After feeling the cultivation of Bailey Hongzhuang, Nangong Yujin and Nangong Yu couldn't help but widen their eyes. Did they see it wrong? Bailey Hongzhuang actually reached the 5th level of the Orange Realm? Even if the royal family spent a lot of money on them, they only reached Orange Realm Level 4. Bailey Hongzhuang's cultivation was higher than theirs. In the next moment, the aura of Xia Jiqing and the others also burst out. All of them were Red Realm Level 9, which surprised everyone again. Which small dynasty did Bailey Hongzhuang and the others come from? Their strength is really amazing. With this kind of strength, There is no one in the small dynasty who could defeat them. Although their cultivation is good, there is still a big gap between them and the cultivators of the Green Firmament dynasty. Even though Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were very powerful, the cultivators present still favored the cultivators from the Green Firmament dynasty. After all, cultivation was the most important thing in a battle. The combat strength of middle-sized empires had always been stronger than the cultivators of small-sized empires. This was the difference in national strength, and it was especially obvious in this assessment. Ren Wantong and the others were shocked when they saw the strength of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Previously, they only thought that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were all in the Red Realm and were not qualified to get along with them. Now it seemed that they had really overestimated themselves. Bailey Hongzhuang's Orange Realm rank, 5 cultivation base, was something that many cultivators from medium-sized dynasties could not achieve. Nangong Yujin and Nangong Yu looked at each other. If Bailey Hongzhuang had reached the 5th order of the Orange Realm, then Xia Jiqing had also reached the 9th order of the Red Realm. When did the Azure Water College become so strong? Could it be that the Kanglin College's previous results in the college tournament were intentional? With Bailey Hongzhuang and the others releasing their aura, the cultivators of the Green Firmament dynasty were not willing to fall behind. Even if Yuan Jixin and Xia Jiqing were rescued by Bailey Hongzhuang and the other party would not be their opponents in a head-on battle. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were fixed on Wei Junjie. At this moment, Wei Junjie could not continue to hide his cultivation base. Chapter 13:17. With a wave of Wei Junjie's hand, a large amount of powder flew over. Seeing the large amount of powder, Bailey Hongzhuang raised her hand, and her clothes directly blocked the powder. "Be careful, it's poisonous," a cold voice sounded. The moment she saw the powder, Bailey Hongzhuang had already understood what it was. Listening to Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Xia Jiqing and the others also quickly reacted, their figures quickly retreating and immediately covering their noses and mouths. However, no one thought that Wei Junjie would suddenly use this move, so it was impossible to guard against it. "You're a poison master." Bailey Hongzhuang's phoenix eyes narrowed. She had been guessing Wei Junjie's identity before, but she did not expect Wei Junjie to be a poison master. As the voice of Bailey Hongzhuang fell, the cultivators under the high platform showed a look of horror. They immediately retreated a few dozen meters and looked at Wei Junjie with a different look in their eyes. Poison master, in the Shengxian continent, was a profession that people hated and feared. Poison masters had all kinds of poison powder, poison liquid, poison pills in their hands. They had always walked in the dark and rarely exposed their identity. For this kind of cultivator who walked in the dark, everyone instinctively disliked them. No one dared to offend a poison master. If their cultivation was not enough, they might have a chance to escape, but in the face of those strange poisons, they had no chance at all. However, none of them thought that Wei Junjie was a poison master. After knowing Wei Junjie's identity, everyone felt that Wei Junjie's gloomy and dark appearance was the portrayal of a poison master. Wei Junjie's laughter was hoarse and unpleasant. "The poison pill you fed Nangong Aochin was powerful, and it took me a lot of effort to come in contact with it. Today, I'll let you see my poison technique." Wei Junjie's hands stretched out slightly, and Bailey Hongzhuang also saw Wei Junjie's hands. The thin fingers were now covered with black, and even the nails were slowly turning black. Where was the human hand? Xia Jiqing and the others were speechless. This was the first time they had seen a poison master, but his appearance was too terrifying. Nangong Yujin's face showed a touch of pride. "Bailey Hongzhuang, you met Wei Junjie. Today you will die." Because of the plague, important members of the royal family were infected. For a while, the entire royal family of the Qing dynasty seemed to have fallen into hell. Fortunately, they were fortunate enough to meet Wei Junjie and his master. Ordinary people would naturally avoid poison masters like the plague, but to the royal family at that time, Wei Junjie and Li Wuyo were extremely lucky. Physicians were the most knowledgeable about illnesses, and only poison masters were the most knowledgeable about poisons. With Wei Junjie's help, the plague was finally eradicated. While everyone was in shock and fear, Bailey Hongzhuang's expression remained indifferent. She had met a poison master in her previous life, and one of her masters was the renowned poison saint of the Shengxian continent. A poison master's body was full of poison, and as long as they touched it, they could be infected with poison and die. Wei Junjia's 10 fingers were black, which was a major feature of a poison master. Even some poison masters had black blood. After years of exposure to poison, he had completely become a poison man. Chapter 1318. Because of being immersed in poison all year round, the poison master's body would gradually be eroded by the poison. As a result, the poison master could not spend the rest of his life with his beloved, because if he was not careful, his beloved may die because of the poison in his body. It was precisely because of this that most poison masters were ruthless people. After all, if the heart was not ruthless enough, the average person would not be able to do it. The faces of Xia, Jiqing, and the others became ugly. If Wei Junjia's strength was stronger, they may have a chance to win. But Wei Junjia was a poison master, so it was not difficult to deal with him. At least, they had no way to deal with Wei Junjia. Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman's faces were pale, and they suddenly remembered the medicinal pills that Wei Junjia had fed them before. If they hadn't been clear about what the pill was before at this moment, they had completely understood. In addition to poison, it could not be anything else. When they thought of this, the two were also a little discouraged. Even if they succeeded in leaving here today, under the effect of the poison, they would not be able to survive. The next moment, Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman's eyes became firm. Since they were destined to die, they must not let the other party be happy. Miss Bailey, you should go. Anyway, we can't live. We will help you block them. Yuan Jixin lowered his voice and said to Bailey Hongzhuang, at a time like this was the best way to solve the problem. After all, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were originally involved because of them. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others felt warm and moved. In any case, just from Yuan Jixin's words, they could see his loyalty. Bailey Hongzhuang waved her hand slightly, and a smile appeared on her pretty face. Don't worry, it hasn't reached that point yet. Yuan Jixin was startled, and his face couldn't help but show an anxious look. But after seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's calm and magical smile, his original worry quietly calmed down a bit. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her phoenix eyes and shot a sharp gaze at Wei Junjia. Since that's the case, let's see whose poison skills are better. She rarely used poison, but that didn't mean that she didn't know how to use poison. On the contrary, her poison skills were also outstanding. As soon as these words came out, everyone looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with surprise in their eyes. Bailey Hongzhuang, what do you mean? Is she also a poison master? But she doesn't look like a poison master at all. Bailey Hongzhuang is truly a newborn calf that is not afraid of tigers. She thinks that she is invincible just because she has some strength. I'm afraid that she won't even know how she died. Everyone couldn't help but mock. If there were still some cultivators who thought that Bailey Hongzhuang might win before, now everyone thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would lose without a doubt. Because this was simply an unsolvable situation. Under the black cloak, a sharp light flashed in Wei Junjia's eyes. He had seen the poison that Bailey Hongzhuang had used on Nangong Aochin. This poison was extremely powerful, and even his master had been amazed when he saw it. After that, they had spent half a year researching the method to detoxify the poison. Chapter 1319. According to his master and his thoughts, the person who made this poison pill was definitely not Bailey Hongzhuang herself. The only possibility was that there was a very powerful poison master behind Bailey Hongzhuang. One must know that his master's poison skills were superb, and there were not many poison masters in the entire Shengxian continent that could be compared to him. However, in the face of this poison, his master directly asserted that the other party's poison skills were not worse than his, and might even be stronger than him. Therefore, he wanted to find out the poison master behind Bailey Hongzhuang, so that his master could compete with him. He never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would be a poison master, because Bailey Hongzhuang was a cultivator of the Kanglan College. Just from her results in the college tournament, It could be judged that she put all her energy into cultivation, and it was impossible for her to study poison. What's more, Bailey Hongzhuang's white dress and white fingers had nothing to do with a poison master. Thinking of this, Wei Junjie couldn't help but chuckle. Bailey Hongzhuang, although you know some medical skills, if you want to compete with me in poison skills, you will lose without a doubt. Bailey Hongzhuang shrugged indifferently. It's useless to say more. Let's compete. Xia Jiqing couldn't help but get close to Bailey Hongzhuang's ear and said worriedly, Hongzhuang, this Wei Junjie looks very strange. Can you really do it? When she faced Wei Junjie, she always had a very gloomy feeling, which made people very unhappy. Don't worry, I'm sure. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly and said, let me deal with Wei Junjie. You have to be careful when you fight with Nangong Yujin and the others. Xia Jiqing saw that Bailey Hongzhuang was so confident, and she was also relieved. In her eyes, there was nothing that Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't do. Since Bailey Hongzhuang said so, she was very confident. We understand. Hongzhuang will deal with Wei Junjie, so naturally, they will deal with Nangong Yujin and the others. Xiao He, Xiao Bai, go help Jiqing and the others. Bailey Hongzhuang quickly arranged everything. With Xiao He, Xiao Bai, and Yuan Jixin and Xiao Xiao, their numbers were more than enough. The battle broke out in an instant. Xia Jiqing and the others did not hesitate to rush towards Nangong Yujin and the others. They couldn't stand the sight of these hateful fellows for a long time. They wanted to take advantage of today's opportunity to thoroughly deal with these hateful fellows. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Wei Junjie immediately attacked Bailey Hongzhuang. The poisonous powder in his hand was scattered all over the place. It was as if the sky was filled with snow. Bailey Hongzhuang's figure flew, and with a turn, she dodged the poisonous powder. At the same time, several silver needles appeared in her hand, but these silver needles were different from usual. They were completely black. Just by looking at the rich black edge, one could judge the poison on the silver needles. In the next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang waved her hand, and the silver needles quickly flew out. At the same time, the poisonous powder in her right hand was also scattered. Wei Junjie saw this and quickly dodged. These poisonous powders had different effects. At this time, it must be difficult to detoxify the poison. Compared to the poison battle between Bailey Hongzhuang and Wei Junjie, Xia Jiqing and the others had already fought with Nangong Yujin and the others. Chapter 1320. The surging energy fluctuations swept across the central square, and a series of brilliant martial arts techniques were constantly displayed by Xia Jiqing and the others, bursting into fierce collisions in midair. Nangong Yujin and Nangong Yu were also dumbfounded. They originally thought that with their strength, they would have no problem dealing with Xiao Ziqing and the others. However, who knew that two beasts would suddenly appear? The appearance of two beasts was one thing, but the strength of these two beasts had reached Orange Realm Level 5. In their eyes, this was simply an impossible matter. Obviously, these two beasts were contract beasts, otherwise it would be impossible for them to help Bailey Hongzhuang and the others to deal with them. It was already very difficult for them to reach Orange Realm Level 5. Now, the strength of these two contract beasts was comparable to them. This was simply a blow to their confidence. Originally, they thought that it would not be too difficult for them to deal with the beasts, but the power of these beasts was really embarrassing. They simply could not compare with them. Fortunately, these two demonic beasts did not know any martial skills. Otherwise, they would have really lost all their face. Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman were both at Orange Realm Level 1. Although they were injured, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had already given them healing pills when they were rescued. They had not yet recovered, but as long as they were patient, this battle would not be a problem. Under such circumstances, the onlookers found that the situation of the Qing Shao dynasty's cultivators completely crushing them did not happen. On the contrary, Xia Jiqing and the others were suppressing them. Nangong Yujin's face was extremely ugly. While fighting with Xiao Bai, he looked at Wei Junjie, only hoping that Wei Junjie could quickly deal with Bailey Hongzhuang. Once Wei Junjie dealt with Bailey Hongzhuang, He only needed to use poison to kill Xia Jiqing and the others. There was no need for them to fight so hard. However, when Nangong Yujin looked at Wei Junjie, he found that Wei Junjie was actually comparable to Bailey Hongzhuang. After discovering this, Nangong Yujin was also dumbfounded. This situation was completely different from what he imagined. Wasn't Bailey Hongzhuang an alchemist? Wasn't Bailey Hongzhuang an inscription master? As a cultivator, it was already very heaven-defying for her to master these two professions. But now she was competing with a poison master? Nangong Yujin was speechless. He really did not understand who Bailey Hongzhuang was. Why couldn't he judge her according to the thinking of ordinary people? The more Wei Junjie fought with Bailey Hongzhuang, the more he was surprised. According to his judgment, Bailey Hongzhuang should have been defeated long ago, but Bailey Hongzhuang did not seem to be defeated. After exchanging blows, both of them had already been poisoned. However, poison masters had a deep understanding of poisons, and the antidote pills they created were also very useful. Of poison. Because he had been immersed in poison all year round. He had been soaked in poison since he was a child. Ordinary poisons would not have any effect on him at all. It was precisely because he had been immersed in poison since he was a child that he had done a lot of experiments on himself over the years. Therefore, his appearance had been completely destroyed, and he could not show himself in front of everyone. Chapter 13:21. After another wave of poison attacks, the way Wei Junjie looked at Bailey Hongzhuang had completely changed. If he had previously suspected that Bailey Hongzhuang was just a newborn calf that was not afraid of tigers, at this moment, he could already confirm that Bailey Hongzhuang was a poison master. Other than a poison master, no matter if it was a doctor or a cultivator, after being hit by so many poisons, it was impossible for them to be so unaffected. Bailey Hongzhuang's moves and calm appearance, other than a poison master, there was no other possibility. However, thinking of this point, Wei Junjie's shock grew even stronger. Since Bailey Hongzhuang was also a poison master, then why was there such a huge gap between them? He had followed his master since he was young, and after his master brought him back, he had no other choice. As a disciple of a poison master, he could only be a poison master. Even he himself could not remember how long it had been since he last saw his own face, because even he did not dare to look at it. If he could, he also wished that he didn't look like this, neither human nor ghost. Unfortunately, this was destined from the beginning. As everyone knew, a dark skin was a characteristic of a poison master, and it was impossible to change. However, since they were both poison masters, why was Bailey Hongzhuang in front of him in a completely different state? How did you do it? Wei Junjie could not hide the shock in his eyes, and could not help but ask. Hearing Wei Junjie's words, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately understood what Wei Junjie was asking. Back then, her master was also like Wei Junjie, changing his appearance and unable to see others. However, as her master's poison arts became more and more exquisite and finally reached the stage of returning to the original state, all the poison in her body disappeared, and her body became immune to all poisons. When she became her master's disciple, her master had already returned to the appearance of a normal person. As her master's understanding of poison arts deepened, she also avoided walking the same path as other poison masters when learning. However, Wei Junjie obviously did not have her luck. There are thousands of cultivation methods in this world, and even if you are both poison masters, you may not walk the same path. Bailey Hongzhuang's tone was mild. She did not have any good impression of Wei Junjie, so naturally, she would not explain too much. Just from Wei Junjie's previous performance, she knew that Wei Junjie's hands were stained with blood. A large part of the reason why poison masters were loathed was because of their viciousness. In order to test their poison techniques, many poison masters would find some innocent people to be their test subjects. These test subjects often had tragic endings. Just hearing about it was enough to make one shudder. Therefore, although Bailey Hongzhuang knew about poison, she had never revealed her identity as a poison master. She had never used a human as a test subject. Moreover, she had put more effort into her medical skills. You mean there's another way? Wei Junjie's eyes lit up. He never thought that there would be such a possibility. Bailey Hongzhuang shrugged. There are many ways in this world, you just haven't found them yet. However, I'm afraid you won't be able to find them in this lifetime, but there might be a chance in your next life. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Wei Junjia's face instantly turned ugly. Chapter 1322. Her delicate and beautiful face curled into an enchanting and confident arc. This was a plan that she had long prepared. Previously, she had used poison to paralyze Wei Junjia's body and dull his senses. She had then taken advantage of the moment when Wei Junjia had been speaking to stab her silver needles into his body. If this had happened before, Wei Junjia would have noticed it very quickly given his reaction speed. However, Wei Junjia's body was now paralyzed, and he could not sense the silver needles in his body. By the time he realized it, the poison would have already entered his blood. Based on the speed of his blood circulation, it would soon invade his internal organs. Even though Wei Junjia has a certain level of resistance against many poisons, once the poison enters his blood, even a poison master would be powerless to save him if he did not have an antidote. Wei Junjia's expression instantly turned ugly. He had fallen into Bailey Hongzhuang's trap because he had wanted to restore his normal appearance. Wei Junjia immediately took out an antidote pill and swallowed it at the thought of this. However, he did not know how powerful Bailey Hongzhuang's poison was and whether his antidote pill would be able to cure it. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was calm as she watched Wei Junjia's actions. She had long seen this as an opportunity. Hence, the poison that she had used was the most powerful one among all the poisons that she had mastered. It was a poison that she had invented. Even her master had been shocked when she had first concocted this poison. The most peculiar thing was that after she had concocted the poison, she had not been able to concoct an antidote for a long time. It was not only her master had not been able to concoct an antidote either. In the end, both master and disciple had concocted the antidote as if they had been possessed and had finally succeeded. It was after she had concocted this poison and the antidote that her master had told her that she could complete her apprenticeship. Hence, she had a special feeling towards this poison. She believed that this was Wei Junjia's first time encountering this poison, and he would never be able to cure it. What's going on? Why does Wei Junjia look like that? Could it be that Bailey Hongzhuang has one? Why is the situation between them so strange? How could this be? Bailey Hongzhuang is not a true poison master. How could she have one against Wei Junjia? However, Bailey Hongzhuang has been able to compete with Wei Junjia for so long in terms of poison techniques. This proves that her poison skills are not bad. Everyone expressed their opinions. This was their first time witnessing a poison competition, and they could not understand the trick behind it. The only thing they knew was that if it had been them, they wouldn't have been able to withstand a single wave of poison attacks. Soon, Wei Junjia found that the situation in his body was getting worse and worse. The detoxification pill could not remove the poison in his body. On the contrary, the poison was spreading faster. 5. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Wei Junjia faintly. She usually didn't use much poison. Only in some special circumstances would she use this method. This heart-devouring 5 poisons was made by her using 5 special poisons. Ordinary poison masters would never be able to imagine which 5 poisons she used to concoct it. Because of the mutual promotion and suppression of these 5 poisons, some of them had already been worn away, making it impossible to determine. Chapter 1323. Xia Jiqing and the others were fighting fiercely with Nangong Yujin's group. The collisions of their martial arts caused amazing movements. Xiao He and Xiao Bai's fighting power was not weak, plus Nangong Yujin and Nangong Yu's strength was raised by the royal family through some means, so their foundation was not solid. As a result, Nangong Yujin and Nangong Yujin retreated step by step as Xiao He and Xiao Bai fought. Slap! Xiao He slapped Nangong Yu's face again. But before it was the left side of her face, now it was the right side. Nangong Yu's swollen face was now symmetrical, but it was swollen like a pig's head. Feeling this familiar slap, Nangong Yu's eyes suddenly changed. Looking at Xiao He in front of her, her eyes were full of burning anger. She always thought that the slap on her face was done by Bailey Hongzhuang, but now she knew that it was done by the contract beast in front of her. "I'm going to kill you, beast," Nan Gongyu shouted. She was slapped twice by a beast. This was simply a joke. Xiao He was a little proud and looked at Nan Gongyu provocatively. At the same time, a fist directly hit Nan Gongyu's eye. Boom! Nan Gongyu's body fell down. Under this fist, she was already dizzy and seeing stars. Seeing Xiao He's attack, Xiao Bai was not slow either. Another fist hit Nan Gongyu's face. This guy was so annoying, killing him directly was too easy, so naturally, he had to be humiliated. "You despicable and shameless guy. You want the master to kneel to you, dream on." Boom! Xiao Bai punched again. He had wanted to kill this guy for a long time, but he was forced to do so. Now that this guy took the initiative to come to his door, he had to teach him a lesson. Dongfang Yu quickly solved the Red Realm 9th stage cultivator. Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman fought against the Orange Realm 2nd stage cultivator. Gong Xiaoqing, Xia Jiqing, and Bai Junyu fought against the Orange Realm 1st stage cultivators. Compared with the overwhelming advantage of Xiao He and Xiao Bai, Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman were in a very difficult situation. Their cultivations were already one level lower than their opponents. Coupled with the fact that they were already injured, it was only natural that they were forced to retreat step by step. They could only hold on and fight back. Seeing this, Dongfang Yu rushed directly to Nangong Yujin and said to Little White, "Little White, you go and help Yuan Jixin. Let me deal with this guy." Hearing this, Little White looked at Dongfang Yu and then at Nangong Yujin. After Nangong Yujin was beaten up by him, his fighting strength rapidly weakened. He also had a lot of injuries on his body. Basically, he didn't have much fighting power left. He believed that with Dongfang Yu's strength, it shouldn't be difficult to deal with Nangong Yujin. What's more, he also knew about the hatred between Dongfang Yu and Nangong Yujin. Dongfang Yu could solve this problem himself. In the next moment, Xiao Bai immediately went to Yuan Jixin and the others. They spent so much effort to rescue Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman. They couldn't let anything happen to them. With the appearance of Xiao Bai, the pressure on Yuan Jixin and Nangong Yujin was greatly reduced. They could only barely hold on, and there were many wounds on their bodies. But when Xiao Bai came, it became a complete suppression. Chapter 1324. Dongfang Yu stood in front of Nangong Yujin. His always gentle and elegant face was covered with frost at this moment. "Nangong Yujin, the grievances between you and me should be settled." Dongfang Yu's voice was cold, and his eyes were as sharp as a knife. Seeing Xiao Bai leave and his opponent become Dongfang Yu, Nangong Yujin's originally pale face regained a touch of blood. "Dongfang Yu, do you really think you're so great? You're no match for me with your meager strength." Boom! Dongfang Yu was too lazy to talk to Nangong Yujin and directly greeted him with a fist. Kacha! The sound of bones breaking was heard, followed by Nangong Yujin's screams and wails. His nose was directly broken by Dongfang Yu. Blood spurted out from his nose. Nangong Yujin's face had become embarrassed. While Nangong Yujin hurriedly stopped the nosebleed, Dongfang Yu's attack directly broke out. He didn't want to talk to this kind of scum. His fist was enough. Boom! Boom! Under Dongfang Yu's wave after wave of attacks, Nangong Yujin also complained. He had never met anyone who attacked like this. However, Nangong Yujin's reaction speed was also very fast. If he continued to be attacked by Dongfang Yu, his life may not be saved. Therefore, under such circumstances, Nangong Yujin did not care about the pain in his body and immediately attacked Dongfang Yu. Boom! Dongfang Yu's figure quickly retreated. Although Nangong Yujin was injured, the gap in strength was still not easy to deal with. Nangong Yujin looked at Dongfang Yu with a sneer. "Dongfang Yu, my second brother humiliated you. Now I can humiliate you." Even though Nangong Yujin's momentum was good at the moment, his face was full of blood and he did not have the slightest strength. On the contrary, his funny appearance made him look like a clown. The anger in Dongfang Yu's eyes gradually deepened. His hands clenched into fists. "Nangong Yujin, you will die today." While Nangong Yujin and Dongfang Yu were fighting, Nangong Yuer could no longer bear Xiao Hei's attack. At this moment, her face was red and swollen, her eyes narrowed into slits, and she could not see the situation in front of her. Wei Junjie, save me, Nangong Yuer shouted. She never thought that her trap would end up like this. If they did not have these two contracted beasts, they would still be defeated. Who would have thought that two orange-level rank 5 contracted beasts would appear out of nowhere? No matter how much he calculated, he still made a mistake in the end. What made them even more helpless was that Bailey Hongzhuang had actually rescued Yuan Jixin and Yi Qianqian, giving them a bit of help instead. Thinking of this, Nangong Yu was furious. Hearing Nangong Yu shout, everyone turned to look at Wei Junjie. However, in the next second, Wei Junjie's body fell heavily to the ground. Bailey Hongzhuang looked coldly at Wei Junjie, whose face had turned purple. Her judgment was right. Wei Junjie couldn't cure her poison. Wei Junjie's eyes stared at Bailey Hongzhuang. He could not believe that he would be defeated by Bailey Hongzhuang. He had studied poison for so many years, and he had never met an opponent. He claimed to be the second poison master under his master, but today he was defeated by a little girl. He was not reconciled. Chapter 1325. The surrounding cultivators' expressions changed when they saw Wei Junjie fall. Wei Junjie lost. Doesn't that mean Bailey Hongzhuang's poison skills are more powerful? I didn't expect Bailey Hongzhuang to be such a powerful poison master. No wonder the royal family of the Qing Shao dynasty is in trouble because of Bailey Hongzhuang. Everyone knew how powerful poison masters were. Even the royal family did not want to provoke them. It was not unheard of for a poison master to destroy an entire family or royal family. Once a poison master made by a poison master could not be detoxified, ordinary people could only wait for death. The cultivators of the Qing Shao dynasty are going to be in trouble. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang defeat Wei Junjie, everyone changed the topic. From the moment Wei Junjie had fallen, the outcome had already been decided. When Nangong Yu asked Wei Junjie for help, she saw Wei Junjie fall. Her face instantly turned pale, and her eyes flashed with disbelief, followed by despair. Wei Junjie was dead? He died at the hands of Bailey Hongzhuang? Nangong Yu could not believe it. In her eyes, Wei Junjie was so powerful that ordinary people did not dare to provoke him. Because of Wei Junjie's existence, their small world had been thriving for the past few months. No one dared to offend them. Now that Wei Junjie was dead, it meant that their backer was gone too. Bang! Xiao Hei knocked Nangong Yu down with one blow. At the same time, its 2 claws went straight for Nangong Yu's throat. It had wanted to kill Nangong Yu for its master for a long time. Now its wish was finally fulfilled. No! Nangong Yu fought back frantically. She did not want to die at the hands of contract beast. She still had a beautiful life ahead of her. She could not die like this. However, in the face of Nangong Yu's counterattack, Xiao Hei's attacks became more and more vicious. No matter how much Nangong Yu struggled, she was destined to die today. Ah! Nangong Yu screamed as a sharp pain came from her neck. Then, she felt the warmth on her neck and the strength in her body gradually dissipating. Everyone looked over when they heard Nangong Yu's scream. After seeing that Nangong Yu had been killed by Xiao Hei, the cultivators of the Green Firmament dynasty turned pale. Nangong Yu's death meant that they were under even more pressure. Yua, Nangong Yujin shouted. He never thought that Nangong Yu would die. Nangong Yujin then looked at Wei Junjie. He did not understand why Wei Junjie and Bailey Hongzhuang were in a stalemate for so long. If Wei Junjie had defeated Bailey Hongzhuang earlier, Nangong Yu would not have died. However, when Nangong Yujin turned his head, he saw Bailey Hongzhuang walking towards him. Nangong Yujin's eyes widened. He did not understand how Bailey Hongzhuang could come over. Looking carefully, he found that behind Bailey Hongzhuang, Wei Junjie had fallen to the ground. This is impossible. Nangong Yujin shook his head. With Wei Junjie's ability, how could he die in the hands of Bailey Hongzhuang? While Nangong Yujin was in a daze, Dongfang Yu's fist had already hit him. Boom! Nangong Yujin accidentally fell to the ground. Before he could stand up, Dongfang Yu's sword had already pierced his body. Pucci. Chapter 13:26. Go to hell. Dongfang Yu's eyes flashed with a fierce and cold light. He had been waiting for this moment for a long time. Nangong Yujin waited for Dongfang Yu. He never thought that he would die in the hands of Dongfang Yu. A sneer spread from Dongfang Yu's lips, and the anger that had been accumulating in his heart for a long time was completely released at this moment. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly walked in front of Nangong Yujin. She looked at Nangong Yujin, whose eyes were gradually losing focus, and her deep eyes flashed with a ray of light. Nangong Yujin looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, and his dilated pupils showed disbelief and a strong unwillingness. He had set up today's situation in order to catch Bailey Hongzhuang and the others in one fell swoop. However, the outcome was the opposite of what he thought. How could they be the ones to be destroyed? After the cultivators of the Qing Shao dynasty saw the fall of Nangong Yujin and the other two, their hearts flashed with the intention to escape and immediately wanted to leave here. However, Xia Jiqing and the others had already guessed that such a situation would happen and did not give them any chance to leave. The last time they dealt with the cultivators of the Sky dynasty, Fu Yiyu and the others wanted to escape at the last moment. Because they were not fully prepared, they let Fu Yiyu escape. This time, they would not let the same thing happen again. The cultivators near the central square were completely dumbfounded. They guessed the beginning but not the end. My God, which dynasty did Bailey Hongzhuang and the others come from? The fighting power of this small dynasty is too strong. The cultivators of the Qing Shao dynasty all died in their hands. It's amazing. It's best not to offend them in the future. Otherwise, I'm afraid you won't even know how you died. Everyone was secretly speechless. The team of a small dynasty defeated the team of a medium-sized dynasty. This kind of thing was very rare. Today, it was completely displayed in front of them. Not long after, Yuan Jixin, Xia Jiqing, and the others also killed the rest of the people. Previously, the cultivators of the Green Firmament dynasty had humiliated Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman. Now that the tables had turned, Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman could finally vent their frustrations. After everything was settled, Bailey Hongzhuang clapped her hands and said with a smile, "Now that everything is settled, we can go back and rest." Xia Jiqing and the others nodded their heads. Today's battle was hearty and made them very happy. Xiao He and Xiao Bai quickly retrieved Ren Wantong and the others' Chinquin bags from the ground before leaving with Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Previously, the poison technique competition between Bailey Hongzhuang and Wei Junjie was carried out on the high platform. Ren Wantong and the others had already lost their lives to the poison. As Bailey Hongzhuang and the others walked down from the high platform, the surrounding cultivators consciously made way for them. After knowing their strength, no one dared to provoke them again. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others smoothly found the house to live in. Dongfang Yu smiled and said, "Everyone has worked hard for so long. Now we can rest." After taking revenge, Dongfang Yu only felt refreshed. He did not expect that his original regret would be fulfilled in this small world. It really made him very satisfied. Gong Shaoqing and the others nodded slightly. It was indeed very late. Chapter 13:27. Bailey Hongzhuang noticed that Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman's faces were gradually dyed purple and said, "The poison in your body is not simple." She had fought with Wei Junjie before and naturally knew that the poisons that Wei Junjie had concocted were highly toxic. Fortunately, Nangong Yujin wanted to use Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman to threaten her, so Wei Junjie did not poison them immediately. Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman's lips curled into a pale smile. Now that things had come to this, they knew that they would not be able to survive. However, they felt that it was worth it to be able to kill the cultivators of the Qing Shao dynasty. With the cultivators of the Qing Shao dynasty dying with us, our deaths are worth it, Yuan Jixin said. Yuan Xiaoman nodded and then looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. "Miss Bailey, thank you for saving us today. I can only repay your kindness in my next life." Listening to Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman's discouraged words, Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly stunned and then could not help but chuckle. How can I let you die so easily? Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. Xia Jiqing also couldn't help but laugh. Hongzhuang is a genius doctor. She will definitely be able to help you detoxify the poison. Hearing this, Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman were both stunned and could not help but look at Bailey Hongzhuang. Their expressions were a little surprised and a little unbelievable. After all, this poison was not so easy to detoxify. If there was no way to detoxify it, then the siblings would be happy for nothing. Your poison is not simple. It will take some time to detoxify it, and you will also have to endure some pain. Her dark eyes flashed with wisdom. She did not know enough about this poison at present, but she had some guesses in her heart and believed that there should be no problem. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang speak so confidently, Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman stared at Bailey Hongzhuang with their eyes wide open. They were extremely nervous. Miss Bailey, do you mean that we could still be saved? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Of course there's hope. As Bailey Hongzhuang's voice fell, Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman's eyes lit up with excitement. This feeling was no different from rising from hell to heaven. They thought that they were going to die today, but they didn't expect that Bailey Hongzhuang would really come to save them. They thought that they were hopeless, but now there was a chance for survival. At this moment, Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman only felt that Bailey Hongzhuang was their savior. Otherwise, how could she help them again and again? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled gently and said to Xia Jiqing and the others, "You can go back and rest first. I'm afraid we will have to stay here for a few days." Xia Jiqing and the others nodded. Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman were originally injured, and now that they had to be detoxified, it would take some time for them to recover. As Xia Jiqing and the others returned to the house, Bailey Hongzhuang said to Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman, "Come with me." Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman had been poisoned for a long time. Coupled with their injuries, their resistance had decreased. If the poison was not removed as soon as possible, it would hurt their foundation. The next day, as soon as Bailey Hongzhuang walked out of the house, Xia Jiqing and the others greeted her, their faces full of worry and nervousness. "Hongzhuang, how are Yuan Jixin's injuries?" Dongfeng Yu asked aloud. Chapter 13:28. Looking at everyone's concerned look, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slightly. "Don't worry, they are fine now. They just consumed too much energy and fell into a deep sleep. They will be fine when they wake up." Listening to Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Xia Jiqing and the others were relieved. After all, it did not affect Yuan Jixin and Xiaomang. Fortunately, they are fine. This can be considered as a blessing after surviving a great disaster. Xia Jiqing chuckled. Although she did not know Yuan Jixin and Xiaomang for a long time, from their performance yesterday, she could see that they were worthy of deep friendship. In the future, Yuan Jixin and Xiaomang will be in a team with us? Bai Junyu said slowly. As Bai Junyu's voice fell, everyone's expression was stagnant for a moment as they thought about it. Even if they felt that Yuan Jixin and Xiaomang were good, they did not know the details. It was not as strong as their friendship. In this small world, trust could be said to be the most important. If Yuan Jixin and Xiaomang could not wholeheartedly integrate into this team, it would undoubtedly be very troublesome. Bailey Hongzhuang was also thinking in her heart. She did not mind Yuan Jixin and Xiaomang joining the team, because from Yuan Jixin and Xiaomang's previous performance, it could be seen that the two of them were trustworthy. However, she had feelings for the Yuan family, but the others did not know them at all. The biggest problem was whether they could accept it. Master, Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman are both Orange Realm Level 1. If they are included in our team, their combat power will be greatly improved. Xiao He said slowly. Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman were not weak. After joining the team, it would reduce a lot of trouble. After all, a team of 7 cultivators would be judged as a team from a medium-sized empire. The next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Gong Shaoqing and the others and said, "What do you think?" "I think there is no problem." Xia Jiqing was the first to speak. "If 2 Orange Realm Level 1 cultivators join us, then our strength will be strengthened. Bai Junyu waved his hand. He had no opinion on this matter. Dongfang Yu and Gong Shaoqing looked at each other. It seemed that only the two of them thought more. If they're trustworthy, then join. Gong Shaoqing pondered for a moment and said he did not object to any true friends joining the team, provided that they were sincere. If they were disloyal, there would be a big problem. What's more, they knew that they had saved Yuan Jixin and Xiao Meng. If they did not team with them, in this small world, Yuan Jixin and Xiao Meng would not last for long. With the strength of the two people, any empire's team. Xiao He and Xiao Meng. S had A and Zhao's is Xiao test. S is Xiao and Xiao Meng is SS no test everyone's S T or S come. Since Bailey Hongzhuang left, Di Beichun had been inquiring about the Yu family, wanting to know where Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing were imprisoned. Chapter 1329. He had sent people to infiltrate the Yu clan with the intention of finding out where Lan Yunxiao and Lan Yu were imprisoned. However, the Yu clan had sealed this information extremely tightly. Even some of the Yu clan's cultivators did not know about it. It was as if only a small portion of the Yu clan's cultivators knew about it. The Yu clan's cultivators who knew about this were almost all core members of the Yu clan. It was really difficult to obtain this information from their mouths. Therefore, the progress of this matter was very slow. Thinking of this, Di Beichun could not help but sigh. His deep and handsome eyes were filled with longing. He did not know how Hongzhuang was doing in the pocket dimension. Ever since Hongzhuang left, he felt empty in his heart. He could not help but wonder what Hongzhuang was doing now and whether she would encounter any danger in the pocket dimension. He had always known that there were many dangers in the pocket dimension. Many cultivators who entered never came out. When Hongzhuang chose to participate in the assessment competition, his feelings were extremely complicated. On one hand, he hoped that Hongzhuang would be able to grasp this opportunity to improve her strength. On the other hand, he was worried that Hongzhuang would be in danger. Now that Hongzhuang had really participated, he really hoped that Hongzhuang would not participate, because the feeling of not being able to see Hongzhuang was really too unbearable. Knock, knock. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Di Beichun recovered from his thoughts and opened the door. He saw C2 Yin standing outside the room. His weathered and calm face was filled with a faint benevolent smile. Master! Di Beichun bowed and immediately moved aside to let C2 Yin in. Master, are you looking for me? Di Beichun brewed a cup of tea and placed it in front of C2 Yin. During this period of time, he had already resolved all the factors that were disadvantageous to him in the Tiangang sect. He was not as vexed as before. After settling these matters, he had also become a lot more relaxed. Normally, other than cultivating, he would also investigate the Yu clan situation. Situ Yin looked kindly at his disciple, whom he was very proud of. Ever since he rescued Di Beichun had been working very hard. In particular, his tenacity in cultivation was something he admired very much. Di Beichun had never disappointed him since he was young, and he had long regarded Di Beichun as his grandson. "You suffered a lot during the few years I was away," Situ Yin said slowly. He didn't expect that after he left Tiangang sect, Di Beichun would encounter such a thing. Needless to say, he knew how difficult it was for Di Beichun in the past few years. He had always known that Di Beichun had an obsession in his heart. Perhaps he was dissatisfied with the fact that he would be abandoned, so he had been working hard to improve his strength. Perhaps he just wanted to prove his excellence in front of his biological parents one day. Listening to C2 Yan's words, Di Beichun was slightly stunned. Then he revealed a faint smile. Master, although my previous situation was indeed very bad, I also gained a lot. He used to hate that he would become a meal fee, but now he was only thankful for all of this. If it weren't for such a sudden thing, he wouldn't have known Hongzhuang. Compared to being with Hongzhuang, all these hardships were nothing. Looking at the smile on Di Beichun's lips, C2 Yin immediately understood Di Beichun's thoughts. Chapter 1330. You seem to be very concerned about the Yu clan situation recently. C2 Yin looked straight at Di Beichun. Although Di Beichen's actions were very secretive, they did not escape Si Tu Yan's eyes. As far as he knew, Di Beichen had never had any contact with the Yu clan, nor did he have any conflicts with them. Now that he was suddenly so concerned about the Yu clan, it was a little strange. Hearing Si Tu Yan's question, Di Beichen's gaze changed a little. He had been very careful, but he did not expect his master to find out. However, in the current situation, whether he should say it or not was a problem. Si Tu Yan saw Di Beichen's constantly changing expression, and his deep eyes flashed with wisdom and understanding. He had always known Di Beichen very well, and he also knew that Di Beichen would not do anything out of line. The current Di Beichen was no longer the child he used to be. Naturally, he would have his own secrets. Di Beichen, if it's not convenient for you to say this, then don't say it. Hearing this, Di Beichen raised his eyes and looked at Si Tu Yan in surprise. However, Si Tu Yan smiled faintly. You know that I've always treated you like my own grandson. If you need my help, just tell me. No matter what, I will always be on your side. Si Tu Yan's smile was warm and kind. He had missed the woman he loved the most in his life. He thought that he would be alone for the rest of his life, but he did not expect to meet Di Beichen. From the moment he picked up Di Beichen, he had already treated Di Beichen as his family. Hearing Si Tu Yan's words, Di Beichen's gaze changed gradually. Since he was young, he had always known that his master had been very good to him. He had seen many strict fathers, and almost every sect leader was extremely harsh. However, Si Tu Yan was not like that. Since he was young, he had always hoped that he could become better, so he worked very hard. However, Si Tu Yan always looked at him with a smile on his face. His earnest teachings echoed in his ears, telling him not to work too hard and that children should have the fun of being children. It was precisely because his master was so good to him that he wanted to win glory for his master. He worked hard and had never disappointed his master since he was young. His master's friends all said that his performance was very good, and every time he saw his master's satisfied smile, he felt greatly encouraged. If it wasn't for his master saving him and raising him, he wouldn't have everything he had now. Thank you, master. Di Beichen's handsome face was filled with gratitude. The person he, Di Beichen, respected the most in his life was Si Tu Yan. The smile on Si Tu Yan's face widened. He patted Di Beichen's shoulder and said, "Good luck." However, just as Si Tu Yan was about to leave, Di Beichen's voice was suddenly heard. "Master, there's something I want to discuss with you." Hearing this, Si Tu Yan turned around and looked deeply at Di Beichen. "Beichen, if it's not convenient for you to say it, then don't say it." Di Beichen shook his head. "I hope that master can help me." Since his master had come to ask him about this matter, then his master must have a clear understanding of this matter. With his master's ability, it should be easier for him to find out where the Yu family had imprisoned Lan Yunxiao. What he was most worried about was the situation of Lan Yunxiao and his wife. No matter what, he could not let anything happen to them. Chapter 1331. Master, it's like this. Di Beichen slowly told his master about Bailey Hongzhuang's past. He believed that his master would stand on his side. As for Hongzhuang's past, his master would know about it sooner or later. If he wanted to help Hongzhuang solve this problem, he would need to use the Tiangang sect's power. It would be best if he could obtain his master's support before Hongzhuang finished participating in the competition. As Di Beichen told his master about Bailey Hongzhuang's past, Si Tu Yan's face couldn't help but reveal a shocked expression. "I've heard about this matter before, but I never thought that Bailey girl was that pitiful girl." Si Tu Yan sighed. Although the Lan family had sealed this information very tightly, there were many ways for sect masters like them to find out. At that time, this news had caused a wave of emotions. Lan Yunxiao was also a hero of a generation. At that time, everyone thought that Lan Yunxiao would take over the Lan family's patriarch position. They never thought that such an unforeseen event would happen. After this incident, Lan Yunxiao left the Lan family, and the Lan family's representative became Lan Jingquang. It was because of Lan Jingquang's despicable actions that he could even harm his own brother's family. Everyone felt a sense of disgust towards him. In the Shangxian continent, strength was respected. However, everyone worshipped true strength and didn't want to use such underhanded methods to obtain victory. Master, according to the information I gathered, Hong Zhuang's parents were later captured by the Yu family. They should still be there now. A deep light flashed through Di Beichen's eyes. In the past, he only thought that the Yu family was a medical family with a high status in the Shangxian continent. Later on, he found out how despicable the Yu family was. If it weren't for the Yu family's support, Hong Zhuang's family wouldn't have ended up like this. C2 Yin narrowed his eyes. Are you sure the information you gathered is correct? Di Beichen nodded affirmatively. It can't be wrong. Hong Zhuang's parents must be in the Yu clan, but we don't know where they are. At that time, the Yu clan sent cultivators to hunt down Lan Yunxiao and his wife. Since they've already found them, why didn't they just kill them to prevent future troubles? Si Tuyin frowned. This was illogical. Under such circumstances, most people would choose to eliminate the source of trouble. This was the only way to prevent future troubles. This should be Lan Jingquang's idea. He seems to be deeply dissatisfied with Lan Yunxiao suppressing him, Di Beichen slowly said. He had spent a lot of effort to obtain this information. It was because of Lan Jingquang's perverted emotions that they were able to rescue Lan Jingquang and his wife. As Di Beichen's voice fell, Citian immediately understood the meaning behind it. If that is the case, it is not impossible. Citian had been to many places in the Shangxian continent in his life, and had seen many people and many things. It wasn't like he had never encountered such a situation before. Some cultivators who had been suppressed for a long time would have complicated feelings towards the person who had suppressed them before. They would only hope to prove their success in front of that person, because doing so would give them a feeling of extreme satisfaction. Chapter 1332. Di Beichen furrowed his brows. He couldn't just go inside and search. With the Yu family's heavy guards, he would only lose his life for no reason. Si Tuyin's eyes flickered with contemplation. That incident was a knot in the Lan family's heart and caused a huge impact. Although Lan Jingquang's influence in the Lan family is like the sun in the sky, there are still many people who are dissatisfied with that incident. After all, Lan Yunxiao was also very reputable in the Lan family. Di Beichen's mind suddenly flashed with a bright light as he said, Master, the Lan family patriarch has not given the position of patriarch to Lan Jingquang. Is it because the Lan family patriarch has not accepted him? Although this was only Di Beichen's guess, Di Beichen's intuition told him that this was the truth. Lan Yunxiao had disappeared for 16 years. Back then, the Lan family head had said that he would pass the position to Lan Yunxiao, which meant that he already had thoughts of abdicating. However, 16 years had passed, and the Lan family head still hadn't passed the position to Lan Jingquang. Other than this reason, Si Tian couldn't think of any other reason. Si Tian's expression was somewhat rueful. I met the Lan family head in the early years. Lan Yunxiao was the son he was most proud of. His favorite son encountered such an incident, and the one who did it was his eldest son. The Lan family head should be the one suffering the most. As a person in power, he could understand the Lan family head's helplessness. For the family's benefit, he could only stop Lan Yunxiao from taking revenge, but he couldn't punish Lan Jingquang's family severely. The Lan family couldn't bear such a loss. Moreover, the Lan family head wasn't the only one who had the final say. Unfortunately, the Lan family head protected the family's benefit, so he was destined to hurt his favorite son. All these years, the Lan family head had never passed the position of family head. This clearly showed that he didn't approve of Lan Jingquang and didn't accept him. Di Beichen nodded at Si Tuyin's words. Previously, they all felt that the Lan family was too heartless and that Hong Zhuang's family had suffered too much unfair treatment. They never thought that the Lan family head was in such a helpless situation. Suddenly, a sharp light flashed through Di Beichen's eyes. Master, does this mean that the Lan family's head is on Lan Yunxiao's side? They originally thought that everyone in the Lan family's family was on Lan Jingquang's, but now it seemed that the situation wasn't as bad as they thought. Situ Yin nodded. It shouldn't be wrong. There must be many people in the Lan family who support Lan Yunxiao. However, Lan Yinxiao had disappeared for so many years, and Lan Jingquang had been bribing the hearts of the Lan family's cultivators. Therefore, the majority of the Lan family was now Lan Jingquang's people. Lanz's Lan family is Lanz's, Lands, the families is Lan families, Lan families Lan. If Bailey Lass wants to take back everything that belongs to them from the Lan family, it won't be easy. Chapter 1333. Di Beichun sighed faintly. When he knew about Hong Zhuang's background, he already knew that this was a difficult battle. However, he knew even more clearly that no matter how difficult it was to complete this, they must complete it, because this was Hong Zhuang's destiny and also his responsibility. He wanted to see Hong Zhuang happy, but if he didn't complete all of this, Hong Zhuang wouldn't be happy at all. CTN looked at the determination in Di Beichun's eyes and understood. It seems that you have already made up your mind. Di Beichun nodded heavily. This was something he had never hesitated about. At the next moment, Di Beichun couldn't help but look at CTN. If he wanted to help Hong Zhuang, he had to borrow the power of Tiangang's sect, and this had to be approved by his master. Noticing Di Beichun's gaze, CTN already understood Di Beichun's meaning. He took a deep look at Di Beichun. His eyes were kind and amiable, and he said with a chuckle, "You are already the young lord of Tiangang's sect, and I have already handed over Tiangang's sect to you. What you plan to do is naturally your choice." Listening to CTN's words, Di Beichun couldn't help but be stunned. He looked at CTN in surprise and said, "Master, this," CTN waved his hand. "Master believes in your decision. Master used to focus on Tiangang's sect. Now that you have grown up, I will hand over Tiangang's sect to you. So, Master, what are you going to do?" Di Beichun looked at CTN in confusion. Listening to Master's words, it seems that he is going to leave again. Didn't Master just break through? Even if he wants to find the opportunity to break through, it's not the time now. Master has a big regret in this life. I missed it in the past, and I have been regretting it all these years. It's just that it's difficult to find an opportunity to make up for it. I originally thought that when you grew up, I would be relieved to hand over Tiangang's sect to you and use the rest of my life to find a way to make up for this regret. CTN's gaze was distant and sad. If he had not been so stupid back then, how could he have caused so many years of regret? However, all these years, he never found a chance to make up for it. Di Beichun looked at Situ Yin in surprise. He never knew that his master had such a huge regret in his heart. From his master's expression, he could tell that this regret was not ordinary. Could it be his master's wife? "Master, if you don't mind, can you tell me about it?" Di Beichun asked tentatively. His master had always been a kind and dignified figure in front of him. Whenever something happened, his master would always have the appearance of an iron-blooded man. He had never seen such a sad master. It was really beyond his expectations. CTN smiled at Di Beichun and said, "Let's go. We haven't had a drink together in a long time." The next moment, CTN had already walked out of the house. Looking at CTN's back as he left, Di Beichun's face also burst into a smile. He still remembered that when he was young, it was often his master who drank while he sat on the side and drank water. Until he was 8 years old, when his master drank, he drank with him. Since his master left, they had not drunk together. Now that he thought about it, it was a special necklace. The sect master's palace was located at the highest point of the mountain peak. There was an open space behind the palace. A cool breeze blew, and the view was broad. It was very quiet and elegant. Chapter 1334. Situ Yin handed a bottle of wine to Di Beichun and said with a smile, "Master has collected a lot of wine in the past few years. You're in luck." Di Beichun took the bottle and drank a mouthful. His face was full of smiles. "It's really good wine. Cheers." The master and disciple exchanged blows, and the wine was continuously poured into their stomachs. They laughed wantonly and were extremely happy. As they drank more and more wine, a trace of drunkenness appeared on their faces. Situ Yin directly lay on the ground, and a lonely smile appeared on his weathered but handsome face. Back then, Master was like you when he was young. He was high-spirited and famous in the world. Di Beichun lay down and listened quietly to see Tu Yan's story. All these years, he had never understood his master's story. If he could, he hoped that he could help his master with his regrets. Hearing this, Deep Baichin nodded slightly. Even now, his master was still very charming. When he was young, he must have been a young talent and an influential figure. When I was 18 years old, at your age, I met the woman I love the most, Mu Jin's. See, Tu Yan's eyes were filled with deep longing. If he could, he hoped that he could return to the past so that it would not cause him lifelong regret. At that time, although I was the son of the sect leader had never told anyone this news. Therefore, everyone only thought that I was an ordinary cultivator, and she was a disciple who entered Tiangang's sect through the assessment competition. She was very beautiful. Everyone who saw her thought so. Even the former #1 beauty of Tiangang's sect could not compare to her. At that time, many young disciples admired her. However, she always had a cold look and did not let people get close to her. I knew about her for a long time. However, I also knew that she did not let people get close to her. Therefore, I only looked at her from afar and did not get close. She had a good friend, Yu Siqing. They talked about everything and were famous for being good friends in Tiangang's sect. Many male cultivators who wanted to pursue her would curry favor with Yu Siqing to get closer to her. Coincidentally, I helped Yu Siqing and got to know Jin Se. The three of us often got together, and over time we became very good friends. I've liked Jin Se for a long time. Just as I was about to confess my feelings to her, Yu Siqing confessed to me. Di Beichun was secretly speechless. He didn't expect his master to fall into a love triangle. This situation was really difficult to solve. Coincidentally, Jin Se saw this scene. Si Tian shook his head and chuckled. Many things were just so coincidental. If he hadn't confessed his feelings to Jin Se back then, he wouldn't be alone right now. And then, Di Beichun asked, in the following days, we didn't contact each other. Perhaps it was because of the awkwardness, but I didn't give up and kept looking for an opportunity. One time, when I went out to train, I tried my best to train with Jin Se and finally succeeded in expressing my feelings, and Jin Se accepted me. At that time, we agreed that once Yu Siqing let go of this matter, we would be together. Di Beichun looked at Situ Yin in confusion. Since Master and Master's wife had already made an agreement, why would there be regrets now? Chapter 1335. Until one day, Yu Siqing came to find me. At that time, Yu Siqing was in a very low mood. She told me that she knew that Jin Se and I were of the same mind, so she decided to let go. After knowing this, I was very happy. Yu Siqing asked me to drink with her, so I drank. She drugged the wine. Di Beichin's handsome face revealed a look of astonishment. If there was anything that could cause a lifetime of regret, then it was the matter of drugging the wine. Si Tu Yin nodded self-deprecatingly. I, Si Tu Yin, have always prided myself on being smart, but in the end, I was defeated by a woman. Yu Siqing drugged me with an aphrodisiac. After that, I don't know anything. The next day, when I woke up and saw Yu Siqing lying next to me, I was dumbfounded. Yu Siqing cried and asked me to take responsibility. No matter how much hatred I had in my heart, I still ruined a girl's innocence, so I could only take responsibility. Di Beichun was shocked to the extreme. He didn't expect such a thing to happen. In that case, Yu Siqing's scheming was simply terrifying. After the entire Tiangang sect knew that Yu Siqing and I were together, Jin Se came to ask me why I had let her down. I didn't explain the reason because it was too hard to say. After that, Jin Se left. I searched for her like a madman, but she had completely disappeared without leaving a trace. Master, then what about Yu Siqing? Di Beichun asked doubtfully. According to this, Yu Siqing should have become the master's wife, but why hadn't he seen Yu Siqing for so many years? Si Tu Yin chuckled. I'm a fool, the biggest fool in the world. Later, I found out that Jin Se came to find me that night, and Yu Siqing just happened to go out. The person who was with me was Jin Se, not Yu Siqing. Yu Siqing was only lying on the bed after Jin Se left. Situ Yin drank a mouthful of wine, and his weathered eyes were filled with some sparkles. It wasn't until I found out the truth that I realized how heartbroken Jean Say was when she cried and asked me why I had let her down. She trusted me so much, but I hurt her so badly. She left so decisively. In her eyes, I'm a complete heartless man. I'm afraid she doesn't want to see me again in this lifetime. All these years, I've been trying to find her, but I couldn't find any trace of her. Si Tuyan's smile was bleak. Everything had been defeated by Yu Siqing. Only now did he know that the most vicious woman's heart was like this. Yu Siqing was Jean Say's good friend, yet she could do such a thing. Just how vicious and merciless was she? However, he found out too late. Jean Say would not give him a chance to redeem himself. The biggest punishment Jean Say could give him was to never see her again. He could only see Jean Say in his dreams at night. But now he was searching the entire Shangxian continent. It was extremely difficult to find someone who was hiding in a sea of people. Di Beichun felt a lump in his throat. He wanted to say something, but he found that whatever he said was useless. He had thought of many possibilities, but he could not imagine such a thing. Chapter 1336. At this moment, he finally understood that for so many years, his master had not been looking for a chance to break through, but for his wife. Master, then where did Yu Siqing go later? Di Beichun frowned. It was all because of Yu Siqing that his master and his wife were reduced to such a state. In comparison, his wife was much kinder than Yu Siqing, and Yu Siqing did not care about their friendship at all. This kind of woman was really terrifying. Because of Yu Siqing, his master was left with endless regret, and his wife was truly heartbroken. She returned to her family. The reason she did so was because she already knew that I was the young sect master of Tiangang's sect. Si Tuyan laughed at himself. He once thought that he was extremely talented and wise, but in fact, he was just a complete fool. If he could not find Jean Say, then he could only regret it for the rest of his life. Perhaps Jean Say would not forgive him, but he only wanted to see Jean Say, even if it was just a glance. Unfortunately, reality was so cruel that it did not give him the slightest chance. Hearing this, Di Beichun finally understood. It turned out that Yu Siqing was so unscrupulous because of his master's identity. The young sect master's identity was enough to make many women drunk, not to mention his master was so romantic and elegant. He was probably the dream lover of countless women. Suddenly, Di Beichun's eyes flashed with a touch of doubt. Master, you said that Yu Siqing returned to her family. Could it be the Yu family? Si Tuyan's next words surprised Di Beichun, and he could only sigh at how there could be such a coincidence in this world. Yes, it's the Yu family. All these years, my Tiangang sect has never dealt with the Yu family, and I have never seen that vicious woman again. Si Tuyan's eyes revealed a strong sense of disgust. He was not even willing to look at that kind of woman. Di Beichun sighed. His master's love history was really too lamentable. It was no wonder that no other woman had appeared by her master's side all these years. After experiencing such an unforgettable experience, no one would be able to forget it. Si Tian turned around and patted Di Beichun's shoulder. So, Beichun, don't be like me. Even if Shi Ling is the granddaughter of the great elder, you don't have to care about this pressure. Follow your heart, so as not to cause lifelong regret. Di Beichun looked at the desolation and blessings in Si Tian's eyes, and his heart was in turmoil. At this moment, he finally understood why his master was different from other people in power. He still remembered that when he was young, his master was also very supportive of him and Shi Ling being together. Originally, he thought that it would take some time to convince his master, but he didn't expect his master to like Hong Zhuang so much. There was no need for him to say anything. His master had already chosen to support him. He was extremely grateful to his master. At the very least, he didn't let him bear that kind of pressure and let him choose the one he loved. Master, I will. Di Beichun nodded, but there was an indescribable emotion erupting in his heart. He was indeed happy to be able to be with Hong Zhuang, but such a lonely master. Come to think of it, master's wife should also be like his master, unable to let go of the previous things. Master, do you have a portrait of master's wife? Di Beichun asked. He wanted to help his master find master's wife. Maybe one day, he would inadvertently see her. Looking at his master's desolate and guilty appearance, he couldn't bear it. Chapter 1337. Hearing Di Baichen's words, Si Tuyin chuckled. With Jin Sei's strength, I'm afraid I won't be able to find her even if she wants to hide from me. Master, let me take a look at the portrait. Maybe I'll meet her one day, Di Baichen said with a smile. The world was so big and there were so many people. It was not easy to find one person, but he believed that the fate between his master and his mistress would not end just like that. There would be a day when they would meet again. Seeing how persistent Di Baichen was, Si Tian took out the portrait from his chinkoan bag and said, "This is Jin Sei." Di Baichen looked up and couldn't help but be stunned. There was a rare beauty in the portrait. Her eyebrows were dark, and her body was like a willow. Every frown and smile of hers was extremely moving. Her delicate and beautiful facial features were like a masterpiece made by the heavens. It was difficult for any man not to fall in love with such a beauty. However, when Di Baichen looked at the people in the painting, he felt that they were very familiar. Master, mistress, Di Baichen frowned. Could there really be such a coincidence? Doesn't she look like Bailey? Si Tuyin chuckled. From the first time he saw Bailey Hongzhuang, he lost himself because her face was too similar to the person he had been searching for all these years. However, after taking a closer look, there was still a difference. Jin Sei exuded a cold and arrogant temperament, while Bailey Hongzhuang was more tenacious and unyielding. Their identities were different and their environments were different, so their temperaments were also different. It was just that the charm was extremely similar to the one before. Every time Si Tian saw Bailey Hongzhuang, he felt as if he was looking at Jin Sei. He felt that this might be a curtain from the heavens, allowing him to have a chance to see Jin Sei's shadow. Di Baichen nodded. They really look alike. At this moment, Di Baichen suddenly understood why his master had shown such deep affection and admiration for Hongzhuang, even though they had just met. Thinking about it, a large part of the reason was that Hongzhuang and Master's wife looked very similar. Master, isn't this too much of a coincidence? Di Baichen frowned. This was too much of a coincidence. Could there really be such a coincidence in the world? The boundless universe is full of wonders, Situ Yin said slowly. Di Baichen sighed helplessly. He really hoped that one day his master would be able to find his wife. Suddenly, Di Baichen's eyes lit up, and his handsome face was filled with shock. Master, you said that your wife's surname is Mu? Si Tian nodded and looked at Di Baichen in confusion. That's right. His surname is Mu. Di Baichen suddenly sat up, his handsome face showing a shocked and complicated expression. The original drunkenness dissipated a lot in an instant, and his handsome eyes were filled with a touch of clarity. Master, Hongzhuang's mother's surname is also Mu. Could there be a connection between them? Di Baichen kept thinking. Could there really be such a coincidence in the world? If it was all a coincidence, then wasn't it too much of a coincidence? At this moment, Si Tian sobered up and asked, "What's the name of Bailey Hongzhuang's mother?" Although he knew about Lan Yinxiao in the past, he didn't pay much attention to Lan Yinxiao's wife, Mu Lingbing. Following Di Baichen's words, Si Tian's expression suddenly changed, and he couldn't help but recall a scene from the past. Yin, what do you think of the name Lingbing? Chapter 1338. It sounds nice. Why did you suddenly think of this name? Nothing, I just think it sounds nice. Since you like this name so much, let's name our daughter Lingbing. Mu Lingbing, Si Tian's expression changed. There couldn't be such a coincidence. Jin Sei must have come up with this name. Jin Sei. Si Tian's eyes grew brighter and brighter. The hope that had eluded him for so long was finally found. Mu Lingbing is very likely Jin Sei's daughter. Si Tian suddenly stood up. His usually calm and dignified face was now filled with nervousness and excitement. Whenever Jin Sei was mentioned, he was no longer the swift and decisive sect master of Tiangang sect, but an ordinary man looking for his beloved. Seeing that Situ Yin had the same thoughts as him, Di Baichen nodded. I also think it's possible. If Mu Lingbing is really Master's daughter, then wouldn't Master be Hongzhuang's grandfather? Situ Yan's expression changed at Di Baichen's words. Even if Mu Lingbing is Jin Sei's daughter, I'm afraid it has nothing to do with me. He had been searching for Jin Sei all these years, but there was an even bigger worry in the depths of his heart. With Jin Sei's charm, there would never be a lack of suitors. Perhaps Jin Sei had already married someone else and was already filled with children and grandchildren. After all, he was the one who had hurt Jin Sei. He was the one who had let her down first, so it was normal for her to marry someone else. All this time, although he did not find Jin Sei, he sighed in his heart. This result was much better than finding Jin Sei lying in someone else's arms. Deep Beichun shook his head. If that's really the case, then it's not impossible. After all, Master and Master's wife had slept together. Although the possibility was small, it wasn't impossible. As long as I can see Jin Sei again in this lifetime, it's enough. Regardless of whether Jin Sei was married to someone else, he would still treat Jin Sei's child as his own. Situ Yan's brows furrowed at this thought. Is Mu Lingbing locked up in the Yu family like Lan Yanxiao? Di Beichen nodded. That's right, they're all in the Yu clan. Yu Xiqing is also in the Yu clan. Si Tian and Di Beichen looked at each other, and their expressions changed at the same time. If Mu Lingbing really was Mu Jin Sei's daughter, then connecting all the dots, perhaps Yu Xiqing was involved as well. This matter needs to be thoroughly investigated. Situ Yan's eyes shone with a profound light. Before everything was confirmed, they could not make any rash judgments. Di Beichen nodded. We can investigate Mu Lingbing's identity. After knowing all this, Di Beichen's heart was shocked to the extreme. If all of this was true, then all of these grudges had already happened in Master Generation. Si Tu-Yin immediately stood up. His drunkenness had long since dissipated, and his dignified face was solemn. I will investigate the Yu clan's matters. Send someone to find out Mu Lingbing's identity. Yes, Master, Di Beichen replied. Chapter 1339. In the Small World. Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman finally woke up after 3 days of sleep. With the help of Bailey Hongzhuang, the toxins in their bodies had been completely removed, and their injuries had recovered a lot. When the two walked out of the house, they saw Bailey Hongzhuang and the others standing outside the house, waiting for them with smiles on their faces. Seeing this scene, Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman felt warm in their hearts. You're finally awake. Xia Jiqing was the first to speak. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes fell on Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman and smiled. Do you still feel uncomfortable? Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman waved their hands again and again. We're fine. There's no problem. That's good. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Wei Junjia's poison was very powerful, and Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman were already injured before, so after the detoxification, they were very weak and only woke up after 3 days. I'm really sorry to have delayed everyone for so long because of us. Yuan Jixin's low and slightly hoarse voice was full of guilt as he bowed to everyone. The reason why they could survive was because of the help of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Speaking of which, the other party had no obligation to do all this. We're all friends, don't take it to heart, Gong Xiaoqing said. Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman smiled faintly. They were not very familiar with Gong Xiaoqing and the others. They just had a conversation. Although a large part of the reason was because of Bailey Hongzhuang, they were really grateful that Gong Xiaoqing and the others could save them. The other cultivators of the Snow Origin Dynasty team have fallen. In the following days, you will be in a team with us. What do you think? Bailey Hongzhuang's delicate and beautiful face rippled with a light and moving smile. Her voice was gentle and pleasant to listen to. This was the result of their discussion. Bailey Hongzhuang's words were like music to Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman's ears. Before this, they were already very worried about the following days. After all, without a team, it was extremely difficult for the two of them to survive in the small world. At the same time, they knew that it was not easy to integrate into a team. They also hoped to join Bailey Hongzhuang's team, but it was already very difficult for Bailey Hongzhuang to save one of them. If they still wanted Bailey Hongzhuang to accept them, it would be a bit too much. They didn't think that before they could open their mouths, Bailey Hongzhuang had already spoken first. This really made them surprised. Miss Bailey, can we really join? Yuan Jixin couldn't help but ask again. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Yes, but if you decide to join us, you have to join us wholeheartedly. We treat our teammates as family and help each other. Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman nodded repeatedly. We will. Yuan Xiaoman walked over to Bailey Hongzhuang's side, her pretty face filled with joy and gratitude. Miss Bailey, my life was saved by you. From now on, you are my boss. I will do whatever you tell me to do. I will never do anything that I shouldn't do. Hearing Yuan Xiaoman's words, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but be startled. Miss Yuan, Yuan Xiaoman grabbed Bailey Hongzhuang's hand. Boss, you could just call me Xiaoman from now on. Chapter 1340. Everyone looked at Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman's gratitude and joy from the bottom of their hearts, and the smiles on their faces widened. It seemed that Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman's situation was much better than they had imagined. Obviously, these two were also people who knew how to repay kindness. As long as they were loyal, they would get used to each other after a period of time. With the addition of 2 Orange Realm Rank 1 cultivators, the strength of their team had increased by a lot. Since you guys are fine now, how about we depart to the next city tomorrow? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled at Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman. They had stayed here for a few days, and it was time to move on. Although 2 years sounded long, the small world was huge. They had to reach the central city of the small world before the 2 years were up. Hearing this, Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman nodded. No problem. Everyone's journey had been delayed for a few days because of them, and it was time to depart. Then let's go back to the house to cultivate. You guys take care of yourselves. We will depart early tomorrow morning. Dongfang Yu smiled at Yuan Xiaoman and Yuan Xiaoman. The next day, just as the sun rose, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest had already departed from the city to the next city. They were used to going out to hunt monsters every day. Now that they had stayed in the city for a few days, they were itching for a fight. Especially after dealing with the cultivators from the Green Firmament Dynasty, everyone was even more interested in improving their cultivation level. Thinking back, they were oppressed by the Green Firmament Dynasty, and now they were able to take revenge through their own hands. It was all because of their hard work in cultivation that they were able to take revenge. Otherwise, when they encountered the cultivators from the Green Firmament Dynasty this time, they were afraid that they would repeat the same mistake. Now, they understood that only by improving their own strength could they defend their dignity. The 5-person team had successfully advanced to a 7-person team. As such, they no longer had to worry about the difference in numbers when fighting against a middle-sized dynasty team. Although they only had 7 people now, with Xiao He and Xiao Bai, they could be considered a 9-person team. When Baishi's seclusion ended, they would be a 10-person team. Even if they were to fight against a large dynasty team, they would not have to worry too much. Hey, have you heard? There seems to be an ancient relic fluctuation near Wuguang City. Recently, many teams have been rushing to the object square. Ancient relic? Ancient relic has appeared in this small world. There are inheritances in the small world. Back then, many powerhouses who built the small world placed their inheritances in the small world. It is precisely because of this that many cultivators participate in the assessment competition to try their luck and obtain this inheritance. If there's really an ancient relic, we'll be able to obtain. It's our fortune to obtain the inheritances. Of course. Of S of their eyes. To there, to there. To them, S2, of there. Chapter 1341. What news did you hear? Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the 2 beasts on her shoulders, and her beautiful face was filled with a joyful smile. They also met the small team in front of them in the process of hunting beasts, but the mysterious appearance of the team was very suspicious, so she sent Xiao He and Xiao Bai to inquire about it. After all, Xiao He and Xiao Bai had the ability to change their sizes at any time. They were natural spies, and the other party had no way to discover their existence. After Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman saw Xiao He and Xiao Bai's ability to change their sizes, their faces were filled with shock. These 2 beasts can change their sizes. Yuan Xiaoman looked at Xia Jiqing in disbelief, hoping that Xia Jiqing could answer her. As early as when they saw Bailey Hongzhuang in the snow country, they already knew that Bailey Hongzhuang had 3 contract beasts, but they didn't know that these 2 beasts had such a heaven-defying ability. It was already very shocking that these 2 beast cultivation had reached Orange Realm level 5, and now these 2 beasts could change their sizes at will. They had never seen contract beasts with such ability. In this way, as long as these 2 contract beasts went to inquire about the news, it would be difficult for the other party to find out. Xia Jiqing nodded slightly. Yes, Xiao He and Xiao Bai are very powerful. Yuan Xiaoman swallowed a mouthful of saliva, and her expression was a bit shocked and emotional. They are indeed very powerful. Boss is really amazing. Yuan Jixin sighed. This kind of thing that was unimaginable on normal days happened to Bailey Hongzhuang. However, it was already very rare for Bailey Hongzhuang to be able to contract 3 beasts. If it was a normal day, no one would know about this at all. Hongzhuang has always been very powerful. When you get along with Hongzhuang for a long time, you will know. Xia Jiqing smiled. The next moment, Xia Jiqing walked directly to the side of Bailey Hongzhuang, her pretty face full of curiosity. Boss, what did Xiao He and Xiao Bai find out? Listening to Xia Jiqing's words, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flashed with a touch of doubt. Jiqing, why do you call me that? Xia Jiqing chuckled. I think Xiaoman's words are very good. I will call you boss in the future. In fact, I've always thought of you as my boss, huh? Jiqing, we've been friends for a long time. Bailey Hongzhuang was somewhat helpless. Yuan Xiaoman and Yuan Jixin had obviously made up their minds to call her this way. They simply didn't allow Bailey Hongzhuang to refuse. She didn't expect that now Xia Jiqing would also join in the nonsense. Xia Jiqing waved her hand. What does it matter? I just changed the way I addressed him. In the future, when I tell others that you are my boss, they will definitely be shocked and envious of me. No one knew that in the near future, everything would be like what Xia Jiqing said today. Seeing Xia Jiqing being so stubborn, Bailey Hongzhuang no longer said anything. Since Xia Jiqing was willing, then let her be. Master, we just heard a piece of good news. Blackie said with a smile. There are fluctuations of ancient ruins in the small world, and it will soon appear. Now many cultivators are rushing to the place where the ancient ruins are located. We can't miss this good opportunity. Chapter 1342. As Xiao He and Xiao Bai's words fell, Bailey Hongzhuang's dark eyes flashed with a glimmer of light. Before she entered the small world, she had already heard Di Beichun say that there were inheritances in the small world. It was just that it depended on one's luck to encounter a relic. According to Di Beichun, the relics in this small world were very extraordinary. They were of a higher level than the relics in the outside world. This was because those who entered the small world and left behind inheritances were extremely powerful cultivators. It was just that she had been in the small world for a long time, but she had not heard any news about the ancient relics. After all, to cultivators, ancient ruins were opportunities that could only be encountered by chance and not sought after. If they encountered it, they were lucky. If they did not encounter it, they could not force it. She did not expect that there would be news about the ancient relics. This was a great fortune. After hearing Xiao He and Xiao Bai's words, Xia Jiqing could not help but exclaim, "Is what you said true? An ancient relic has appeared?" As Xia Jiqing's voice came out, the expressions of Gong Shaoqing and the others changed a bit. This news was really amazing. Ancient relics. They had seen the ancient relics before and had obtained great benefits from it. They did not expect that they would have the opportunity to see the ancient relics again. This was really too lucky. Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman could not hide the excitement on their faces. They had always heard of the ancient relics, but they had never had the chance to encounter one. Now, they had the opportunity to see the ancient relics. This must not be missed. In the next moment, Gong Shaoqing and the others walked to Bailey Hongzhuang's side and listened to Xiao He and Xiao Bai talk about the news. Where did the ancient relics appear? Bailey Hongzhuang quickly calmed down. The appearance of the ancient relics was naturally excellent news, but how many excellent cultivators were there in the small world? Such a big movement could not be hidden. Since they could get the news of the ancient relics, She believed that other cultivators could also get it. As a result, the competition for the ancient relics would become extremely fierce. Wuguang City, Xiao He and Xiao Xiao exclaimed in unison. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately checked the map. Wuguang City was still some distance away from their current location, and it would take at least half a month to reach there. The distance is quite far. By the time we get there, will the ruins have already been opened? Bai Junyu frowned. The opening of the ruins would not wait for anyone. If they could not make it in time, it would be equivalent to completely losing this opportunity. Bailey Hongzhuang kept thinking. Xiao He, Xiao Bai, what else have you heard? Tell me the details. Xiao He and Xiao Bai nodded slightly and immediately repeated the words of those cultivators to Bailey Hongzhuang. After Bailey Hongzhuang heard all of this, her eyes lit up. They said that they felt the fluctuations of the ancient relics. This proves that the ancient relics have not appeared yet. Even if the ancient relics appear, it will take a long time for the restrictions to disappear. We should be able to make it in time. Bailey Hongzhuang quickly made a judgment. She had seen the relics in her previous life, so she was very familiar with the situation when the relics appeared. Chapter 1343. Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman looked at each other. Looking at the wise Bailey Hongzhuang, they could only admire her. Although they had heard about the ancient ruins, they didn't know anything about it. Bailey Hongzhuang was able to judge so many things. This was enough to prove that Bailey Hongzhuang was very knowledgeable. Thinking of this, the two of them sighed. Bailey Hongzhuang was just from a small dynasty. Not to mention her strength, she could even understand these things that ordinary people didn't understand. It was amazing. Really, Xia Jiqing clasped her hands together, her pretty face unable to hide her excitement. So we can still make it in time. Let's set off quickly. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. If my judgment is not wrong, we should be able to make it in time. Let's speed up and try to reach Wuguang City as soon as possible. Dong Fanyu's handsome and cold face showed a trace of seriousness. Such a good opportunity, none of them wanted to miss it. Although it was extremely difficult to obtain an inheritance from so many cultivators, there was always hope in his heart. The ancient ruins this time are different from the ones we saw last time. Moreover, there will be a lot of cultivators competing for it. Once this news spreads, the teams of large dynasties will come. With our strength, it won't be easy to get benefits from it. At that time, everyone must be more careful. Life is the most important thing. Listening to Bailey Hongzhuang's words, everyone nodded. They really couldn't let this joy get to their heads. For a long time, this assessment competition had been the world of large dynasty cultivators. It was very difficult for medium dynasty cultivators to get a good performance, let alone small dynasty cultivators. Not only were there more cultivators from large dynasty cultivators, but their strength was generally stronger than medium dynasty cultivators. With the strength of their team, the possibility of them standing out was too small. We understand. Seeing the dignified look on everyone's face, Bailey Hongzhuang was also relieved. The situation in the small world was different from the outside world. The reason why they were able to obtain the inheritance so smoothly last time was because of the miasma. If it weren't for the fact that the other cultivators were unable to break through that layer of miasma, the competition would have become much more intense. It was very likely that they would not have been able to obtain this final inheritance. Moreover, the cultivators who came to participate in the assessment were all dragons and phoenixes among men. There is no such thing as the strongest cultivation talent, only stronger. Although she was very confident in her strength and talent, she would not be blindly confident. Only by recognizing reality could one strive for the possibility of doing well. After finding out about the appearance of the ancient ruins, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others did not waste any more time. The matter of hunting demonic beasts was temporarily put aside. At this time, the most important thing was to go to Wuguang City. However, without the white lion's aura, the demonic beasts in the small world would always emerge endlessly. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others could only kill the demonic beasts as they traveled. In the process of killing the demonic beasts, everyone's strength was constantly increasing. Time flew by like a white steed. Soon, Nearly half a month had passed. Chapter 1344. As time gradually passed, the news of the ancient ruins near Wuguang City spread more and more widely. All the cultivators were heading to Wuguang City, regardless of whether they could obtain benefits from the ancient ruins in the end. As long as they heard the news, the cultivators would not let it go. Therefore, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others found that more and more cultivators were walking around them. In the process, there were also some teams that fought because of a disagreement, but most of the teams were wholeheartedly rushing to Wuguang City. After all, they did not know when the ancient ruins would open. Only by arriving at Wuguang City one step earlier would they have more hope of obtaining the inheritance. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others also walked on their own and did not deal with any teams. Naturally, they did not cause any conflicts. Under such a hurry, finally, at dusk, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others successfully arrived at Wuguang City. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the others walked into Wuguang City, they found that the number of cultivators in Wuguang City was simply beyond their expectations. The entire city seemed to be filled with people. A wave of noise swept over from all directions, filling everyone's ears. My God, there are too many cultivators in Wuguang City, right? Xia Jiqing's mouth twitched. Although she had expected that there would be many cultivators here, she still felt that she had underestimated it. The cities in the small world were not small. The closer to the center of the small world, the bigger the city. Wuguang City was not a small city. Although there were many cultivators when they entered the city on weekdays, many places were still empty. It was difficult to find an empty place in Wuguang City in front of them. We're not too late. In a few days, there will be even more people. Dongfang looked around and said. Yuan Jixin nodded slightly. Looking at the situation, the ancient ruins have not appeared yet. Otherwise, there would not be so many cultivators here. Listening to Yuan Jixin's words, everyone's faces showed a smile. Everything was as Yuan Jixin said. As long as the ancient ruins had not opened, they still had a chance. Let's see if there are any houses to stay in first. Her clear and bright phoenix eyes revealed a hint of worry. There were so many cultivators in Wuguang City. It would not be easy for them to find a house. If they could not find a house, then they would have to rest on the street. Listening to Bailey Hongzhuang's reminder, everyone also came back to their senses. They would think about the ruins later. The most important thing now was to find a house to rest. All the way to the interior of the city, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others found that the surrounding houses were already occupied. It was too difficult to find an empty house. It's over. I'm afraid there are no houses. Yuan Xiaoman's face showed a deep sense of helplessness. They had stayed in this small world for a few months, but they had never encountered such a thing. Let's continue searching. If there really isn't a house, then we'll think of something. Yuan Jixin patted Yuan Xiaoman's shoulder. As far as the current situation was concerned, the possibility of finding the house was very small. However, until they saw the last room, they couldn't say for sure that there was no hope. Chapter 1345. Boss, if we can't find a house to stay in, then we can only live on the street, right? Xia Jiqing looked helplessly at Bailey Hongzhuang. This was something she had never thought of before. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at the surrounding environment and nodded. It should be like this. My God. Xia Jiqing lowered her head. Today, she only hoped to take a bath quickly, but now it seemed that there was no way. Looking at Xia Jiqing's listless appearance, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but chuckle. It doesn't matter. Even if we're the first cultivators to rest on this street, there will be many cultivators coming one after another. At that time, we will definitely not be the only team. Bailey Hongzhuang was very open-minded. This feeling was similar to being in the outer camp. Resting in the city was much safer than resting outside the city. They wouldn't be attacked by demonic beasts. Anyway, they wouldn't be staying in Wuguang City for too long. They just had to wait for the restriction to dissipate. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang was so optimistic, Xia Jiqing also stopped complaining. Speaking of which, she had rested in the wilderness many times, but it was a bit strange to stay on the street under the gaze of so many cultivators. As the 7 people continued to search, finally, when everyone was about to give up, they suddenly found two empty houses. They couldn't help but brighten up. Haha, there are still two houses, that's great. Xia Jiqing laughed. Although the number of houses was not many, it was much better than no houses at all. In that case, the men will have one room, and the women will have one room. Yuan Xiaoman asked. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Let's arrange it like this. They would not stay in Wuguang City for long, so two houses were enough. However, just as Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were about to enter the house, a loud voice sounded behind them. These two houses, we want them. Listening to the arrogant voice behind them, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others frowned and turned around one after another. In his line of sight, he saw a burly man looking at them with disdain. The group of cultivators behind him also held their heads high and were extremely pleased with themselves. His arrogant demeanor made it seem as if he didn't care about Bailey Hongzhuang and the others at all. After seeing the appearance of this group of cultivators, Xia Jiqing couldn't help but get close to Bailey Hongzhuang's ear and said, Boss, they're the cultivators of the Star Bright Dynasty. Bailey Hongzhuang narrowed her eyes. She was no stranger to the group of cultivators in front of her. The Star Bright Dynasty was one of the teams that came with them when they were rushing from other cities to Wuguang City. However, unlike them, the Star Dynasty was extremely arrogant. Whenever a cultivator provoked them, they would directly attack. Along the way, they had witnessed the deaths of many cultivators who had clashed with the Star Bright Dynasty. It was just that they didn't expect to meet them here. The Star Bright Dynasty was also a medium-sized dynasty. Among the medium-sized dynasties, the Star Bright Dynasty was definitely one of the best. It was precisely because of this that the cultivators of the Star Bright Dynasty were so arrogant. Chapter 1346. Didn't you hear what I said? The burly man, Lei Penghai, raised his voice. I said we want these two houses. Why aren't you guys scramming? Seeing that a conflict had broken out here, many cultivators turned their gazes over. This Lei Penghai is looking for trouble again. No matter where he goes, he will cause trouble. So what if he's strong? Usually, he can only be arrogant in front of small and medium-sized empires. When he meets cultivators from large empires, he can only be subservient. I can only say that this team is unlucky. It wasn't easy to find two empty houses, but now they have to give them away. With the strength of Star Bright Dynasty's team, other teams don't dare to provoke them except for large empires. Everyone shook their heads. Now, whoever met the Star Bright Dynasty's cultivators would be unlucky and could only obediently give up. However, in the next second, Bailey Hongzhuang's words shocked all the cultivators present. Who are you asking to scram? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows and looked at Lei Penghai coldly. Her voice was oppressive and threatening. Previously, the Star Bright Dynasty's cultivators did not provoke them. Naturally, they would not meddle in other people's business. Now that the Star Bright Dynasty's cultivators took the initiative to find trouble with them, they were not to be trifled with. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's question, Lei Penghai was also stunned for a moment. It seemed that he did not expect Bailey Hongzhuang to have an opinion on his words. He suddenly chuckled, but his expression became more and more ferocious. I asked you to scram. Didn't you hear me? Lei Penghai's eyes were malicious and ruthless. He was very familiar with the team in front of him. He originally thought that this team would know not to be enemies with them when they saw them teach the other empires a lesson. Now, they actually dared to say such words. It seemed that they did not know what was good for them. After hearing Lei Penghai's contemptuous words, Gong Xiaoqing and the others showed anger in their eyes. This group of people really thought that they were great just because they had some strength. They were simply walking sideways. Who do you think you are? Are you worthy of telling us to scram? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her voice, and her calm and indifferent face was also filled with a fierce look. She didn't provoke the cultivators of the Star Bright Dynasty because she didn't want trouble. However, since the other party was looking for trouble, they were not to be trifled with either. The surrounding cultivators were speechless when they heard Bailey Hongzhuang's explosive words. Their eyes were filled with excitement. Looks like there's going to be a good show to watch. Which dynasty is this cultivator from? How dare you shout at the cultivators of the Star Bright Dynasty? I don't know. I've never seen them before. This shouldn't be the case. If it's an expert from a medium-sized dynasty, then they shouldn't be so unfamiliar. If you're not strong enough and still dare to talk to the cultivators of the Star-Bright dynasty like that, you're really courting death. When Lei Penghai heard Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the malice in his eyes deepened. He immediately slapped Bailey Hongzhuang's face. This woman's words made him very unhappy. To Lei Penghai, there was no such thing as having tender feelings for the fairer sex. Any cultivator who made him unhappy only had a dead end. Seeing Lei Penghai's silent and direct attack, everyone only felt that Bailey Hongzhuang's face was going to be ruined.